Room,
It's
the only way to start your day.
July 2021. Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room. 7 minutes after 6. How are you doing? Nduoko?
Fine, thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Lang Tonic.
Lakini maumivu yakizidi, mwana daktari.
That tells you how effective those ads were.
I know.
Because if you can remember them, for me, it's many decades. They were effective.
They were, right?
Oh, they were.
Yeah.
How are you, Eric?
I'm fine.
Good.
Yes.
Huh?
Good to see you.
Good to be seen.
Right. So we'll have a lot of conversations today. The president is in the UK. UK is in the UK. And yesterday he had some meetings with the Prince Charles. He's, of course, been having meetings with his host, the Prime Minister. Today they'll be co-chairing a meeting on education, and we'll have a conversation about that. What is that all about? So we'll get to know about it and what the plan is in terms of education. Plus, there are very many things that their visit is said to have gotten in terms of goodies for the country. That and more conversations coming up today in the show. But let's start with COVID, because yesterday our fellow Kenyans, decided to come out himself and speak himself.
Yes, he did. And once again, he's worried about the numbers of cases in the country. 1,006 new COVID cases from a sample size of 5,584 is what was realized yesterday, now pushing Kenya's positivity rate to 18%. This is not good at all. Total confirmed cases now just at the edge of 200,000, 199,000 and some. Again, highest numbers in Nairobi and Kiambu. And then we go to Kilifi, Kajiado, Mombasa, Nakuru, Uasin Gishu and Busia. He still did come out and say that it's necessary for us to be extremely careful and talked about the uptake of the second dose among those who received their first doses at now 60%, with the majority being male and at 55% and 45% for females. So experts continue to tell us that there are issues, but the CS has said the current spike has been driven in a large part by politicians. He also said that it comes 500 days since it was detected in the country, but he's saying that people are talking about a fourth wave. We never got out of the third wave. What we are experiencing is spike in cases with a positivity rate of 11% and above. And he said that the prevailing situation has been worsened by the highly infectious Delta variant that is resulting in even more severe symptoms. But he's saying that, you know what? We are appealing to the political class to please be sensitive to the situation that is currently in play. We're also asking citizens to please avoid these political gatherings. He is pointing an accusing finger at the political class, blaming the increasing gatherings for the upsurge. He says he now wants county governments to put up oxygen plants to forestall the looming shortage. Now. Not a couple of months before. Now.
Ati?
Yeah. So he's saying, here on this side, please, politicians, help us. I beg. Stop this thing. And now you Kenyans also, when they call for these gatherings, do not go. But in the meantime, all counties set up oxygen plants. It doesn't look like a pretty situation.
It's a very good thing to
say. In terms of the cases, remember what we talked about yesterday? Consistently, for the last 14 days or so, been realizing cases of 500 and above. We got past 800 in the last 3 days. It was 800 and so the day before. And then now yesterday we're looking at 1,000. According to Kagwe, we did not leave the third wave. It didn't actually come to a head and then start to fall. It just kept rising.
Aided by the political class and what happened in Kisumu.
So
You know, that conversation about the political class, it is actually true, but it's incomplete. What the political class has brought to the fore, in my mind, is what the citizenry have been inclined towards doing anyway. Because if you were to be honest about the adherence of us citizens to the COVID protection norms, the truth is we do not comply.
Yeah.
Only in those initial stages did we see that great effort in public transport with individuals. But as of now, the issue of people wearing masks, washing hands when they need to, it's a story.
Big one.
And they congregate in groups willy-nilly. So if politicians come along, it's not as though the politicians are doing something strange. All they've done is encourage them to gather in even larger groups. But they do it anyway. You go to a marketplace, people mill around within the marketplaces or within normal gatherings in the way they have always done. So, yes, the political class are playing their bit in enhancing it, but they are merely coalescing an existing situation and making it more visible. But something struck me when I was thinking about this issue. Remember the things that needed to be done. Now, I'm looking at COVID. There's something that the chairman of ICDC said that got my mind working. You know, we always talk of solutions, and when we relate that word to a politician, it means tell us a little more about what you think should be done. That's the solution. Talk about it. But think, if indeed we hoped to go beyond innovation within our institutions of learning and beyond this funding that we keep talking about, the infrastructure of something like Kenya Industrial Estates was tailor-made, and it was all over the country. Tailor-made, not just for funding, but supporting innovation and supporting small-scale industries. Now, I was thinking, we're talking about these issues around the production of oxygen, okay? We're talking about even medical equipment. Where did ICDC come in? ICDC came in to now fund huger projects that could do such things. Now, the equivalent of ICDC, the equivalent in Singapore, in Japan, in China, the equivalents, that is what has led, in South Korea, it's what has led to this proliferation of industries that you see. This is what got these countries to be industrialized nations. They have the equivalent of what we knew as an ICDC, which we now call Kenya Development Corporation. Now, if there is no talk of reviving institutions such as this one, because they're not banks in the traditional sense of the word, people with the knowledge who will actually walk with you as you go along it, how do you think we're actually ever going to get to a point where we can actually develop internally the sort of things that would make our lives better?
It's very true, but we got to a point where, because of so many things happening in globalization and education and all, if you have conversations with many people, they'll tell you the government should actually be pulling out further and further away from these things.
Eric,
I don't buy into that idea.
It's a con.
There are many people, even in the private sector, will tell you government should get away. No. This thing of saying that you now have Kenya Development Corporation, in fact, it should have been scrapped. No. Oh, it should have been privatized. Let it go into private. Business is the business of business. Government is in the business of government. Those two should never.
There's nowhere in the world where that purity exists. And it's because you understand that the real big brother, the big umbrella that covers everything is government. So saying that government should completely divorce itself, no.
Kuna vile.
Kunavile.
Let's take a break though. At 16 minutes after 6, we are live streaming. Good morning, wherever you are. Say hello. We'll be saying hello to you shortly on this first Friday of this week and the second last Friday of the month. 16 minutes after 6, time for us to take a look at the weather. Good morning.
24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
The BetKing Premier League brings you the Mashemeji Derby this week. On Friday, Tusker faces Nairobi City Stars, and on Saturday, the big one, the Mashemeji Derby, as FC Leopards go up against Gor Mahia. All matches are exclusive to BTV, Channel 172 on aerial decoder and Channel 463 on satellite, and will be played at 3:15 p.m. Get connected to StarTimes for only 999 shillings on aerial decoder or 2,699 shillings on satellite. Don't miss the Mashemeji Derby on Saturday, 31st of July. StarTimes, the official broadcaster of the BetKing Premier League.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise.
You're listening to Spice FM. The
Mostly
weather.
cloudy conditions in Nairobi at 13, highs of 21 today. We'll see highs of 18 in Nyeri, where it's cloudy at 12. Light rain in Nakuru at 40 degrees, highs of 21 and lows of 13. It's also raining in Eldoret at 14. We'll see highs of 22 and lows of 12. Light rain later at 19 in Kisumu, highs of 27 and lows of 18. We're seeing rain showers in Kakamega this morning at 17, highs of 26. 28 will be the high in a rainy Mombasa. It's also raining in Malindi at 25, going to highs of 28. Mostly clear conditions in Kampala at 20, highs of 27. We'll see highs of 29 in Dar es Salaam. It's mostly cloudy this morning at 21. Johannesburg is clear at 9, highs of 18 and lows of 4. Mostly clear conditions at 25 in Lagos with highs of 30. Kinshasa will see highs of 31, 32 today. Clear conditions currently at 21. At 26 degrees, it's raining in Beijing. Highs of 25 and lows of 22. 24 will be the high in Paris, where it's mostly clear this moment at 14. Clear conditions at 13 in London, highs of 22. And it's clear in New York. Still Wednesday night. Coming into Thursday, we'll see highs of 26 and lows of 21.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Everything nice. SpiceFM.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM.
Right. Flora Wacharo has sent us an image of fire.
Yeah, so what we're looking at this morning is that the Manyanja Spine Road that heads towards Kayole and Komarok this morning. There are demolitions that have taken place. And so now at the main Sosian Gate A and B, blocked with burning tires on the road. There are police there, and vehicles are not able to pass this morning, so it looks pretty sticky right now. It's not a good situation,
yeah.
so I have to watch out for that.
Okay.
Right. Everybody else is online this morning. Alan Wafula is tuned in from Eldoret. David Kiari Wasubukia tuned in from where? Subukia. Shamangwa is tuned in from Nakuru this morning. And Rogers lies in County 001 and is locked. Ruth Ondieki is tuned in from Eldoret, and Collins is in Eldoret as well. Charity says, good morning. Babo Wamjini is also tuned. And Kipto Masters is looking for some music. Maybe CT will sing for you in a bit, so let's just hold on and see. Lilio Cheng is tuned in from Siaya. South Africa is in the house. Okay. Batswamia. Benson Mumo tuned in as well. Shanghai Chimurambi tuned in from Lusaka, Karibu Sana. And Patrick Ban Lutek Loturi is tuned in from Salt Lake City. What's on the table today? We'll tell you in just a bit. Kennedy Ogodo is tuned in from and says, I wish you all the best. Thank you very much. And Castro Depot is tuned in from Nakuru. My goodness, everybody's tuned in this morning. Hanief Gooding is tuned in from Barbados, in the West Indies, and he says he loves the show. Well, great. And Geshuki John is tuned in from Nanyuki in Laikipia County. Caleb Kipto Kibet is also tuned in. Can't get to everybody, but we see you. Thank you and good morning.
Karibuni sana kila mtu. City. Today's proverb.
A rooster is not expected to crow for the whole world.
What is it expected to do?
You just get your own rooster if you wanted to crow for you where you are. It crows for the homestead.
Not for its hens.
I like the question you're asking. How on earth am I supposed to know that?
Because you seem to have known who it grows for.
Well, I limit my knowledge to that which I have spoken. Therein lies the capacity of my knowledge. Anything outside that realm, sheer speculation on my part.
All righty.
What do you call an expert on chicken? On chickens?
Chickenologist.
And don't tell me KFC.
Chicken in. Hey, okay. Ati jogoo hali wiki kwa kila mtu.
Dunia nzima.
Okay. Ni sawa. Sawa. So, somebody's asking what's in the menu today. All right, just to remind you what we'll be having. The conversation we'll be having at 7 o'clock is on the Global Partnership on Education. That is a meeting that will be co-chaired by President Uhuru Kenyatta and Boris Johnson. So we want to hear what this meeting is all about and what this Global Partnership on Education is all about. And then at 8, we'll have a conversation on promoting transparency in company ownership and control in Kenya. We know the government has already started that. You have to declare beneficial owner of all the companies that you own. Who is the owner?
Who's the owner's owner?
Not the owner.
The owner. Oh, that is the Kenyan thing where you're saying it twice. Okay, so
The owner.
owner.
Yes.
Okay.
So, enhancing the transparency as well. Those are the conversations we'll be having. Let's take a look at the newspapers. And we'd like you to go through the papers with us from your standard e-paper. From your telecom line, just dial star 550 star 1 hash. For 20 bob daily, you get the standard e-paper. For 20 bob daily, you also get the Nairobian star 550 star 2 hash. And if you want to get the magazine pullouts, today is the day for real estate. It's called what? It's a real estate day for, all the... What? What?
No, it's all right.
Why are you laughing, Ndu?
Today's the
You
day
don't-
for real estate.
Yeah.
It's the real estate day.
Yeah, it's the real estate
Your
day.
creativity
The day
flows
for
in.
real estate.
So
Yeah.
what are we studying today?
The pullout in the standard is called real estate.
Okay.
And the headline is Miga, battle over privacy at high-end estate. Kenya's property market, is it overvalued? Automation at your fingertips. Developer funds training of women in construction. Oh, that's a good one. So if you'd like to get access to these daily pullouts, you can get them for 5 bob daily, star 550 star 3 hash. All the amounts are deducted from your airtime on a daily basis. So, in the papers,
GMO ugali, only 2 steps away for Kenyans. I remember when the GMO conversation started. First of all, there was a ban on GMO foods from certain countries into Kenya because there was a fear that they were cancer-carrying product.
yeah,
And so the government said, okay, stop all of it. But then now research has been continuing over the last couple of years, and it would seem as though we're on the way to get a green light to produce certain kinds of maize that are drought resistant, that produce quickly and then can be processed quickly and then on your table. The point behind GMO foods is to supplement what the country is able to produce at a faster rate, one, and then also make sure that you have quantity, because this is basically food that is grown in a controlled environment. And if you look at GMO foods, what you do is that you take the genetic makeup of a particular crop and you find out what is this thing about. Then you basically build it and then produce it in a controlled environment whereby you can produce large quantities in a short period of time, and then you're able to mitigate against things like drought and famine and have food readily available for people. It's a sensitive conversation because a lot of people are saying, so essentially what we are doing is manufacturing food in a lab. Well, yeah. 2 steps closer to adopting genetically modified maize after researchers submitted their trial report to the Ministry of Agriculture. So last year, the National Biosafety Authority, the state agency that is mandated to regulate genetically modified organisms in the country, approved the varieties to be grown in 6 counties under the National Performance Trials from October. So from the results, according to the Kenya Plant Health Inspectorate Service, Director Theophilus Mutui, the biotech maize varieties produce better yields than other breeds. And they've submitted the report to the ministry for a decision. So if the ministry says go in these 6 counties, they will begin to grow, and it could be on your plate sooner than we expect. All right. The trials were carried out at the Kauro sites in Embu, Thika, Kakamega, Alupe, Kibos, and Mwea. The research on GM maize began with confined trials in 2008 under WEMA, which is the Water Efficient Maize for Africa, and it moved to the MPTs last year. It was approved by MBA and NEMA, and it could pave the way for farmer demonstration and finally open cultivation or commercialization of the crop.
What is needed is a lot of consumer awareness.
Absolutely.
Because you see, like the way that, just looking at the headline itself, GMO ugali is coming to your plate. And that is basically just speaking of the fear that people have.
Yes.
And like just what is GMO? GMO, it has been genetically modified, and that means that it comes into you, so it could be harmful. I think we need to have a conversation.
I think it's absolutely necessary.
We are going to have a very long conversation.
Yes.
This can't be a one-off, huh? You see, like the issue about vaccines, I am glad, I am delighted the Ministry of Health took the position that they took in talking about it on a daily basis, all right? But every once in a while, I think there is need to explain certain things because all the stigma that is related to the ambiguity that people had, they haven't gone away. And it isn't a question of, remember, we saw within the health worker fraternity, people had their issues with the vaccine.
Yep.
All right?
Yep.
But
Teachers as well.
Yes. In short, it's a problem with the general public.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with where you live, your level of education, how much money. It has nothing to do with that. People have issues with certain things. And those who are mandated to actually take charge of them really need to bother to explain and continue explaining until it sinks.
They do. And there'll always be all this politics that comes in.
Yes.
The big companies are trying to sell us their seed. The thing is with this GMO, once you plant, you cannot replant. There's a lot. It affects the farmer themselves on whether they want to accept buying GMO seeds. It affects the consumers on whether they want to consume this GMO product. A lot of conversations need to take place. As we now, the experts at Calro, I trust them. What they're doing and what they've been looking at and looking at maize that can withstand our conditions in the changing climatic conditions and all, it's fine. But beyond them, we need to have somebody else who now comes and starts explaining what is GMO.
The communication has to be very strong.
Consider, what do you think Kari has been doing all these years? When they tell you that they have come up with some drought-resistant grain, what do you think they have done to arrive at this understanding?
They've modified.
They've modified it, yes. What do they tell you when they tell you that they have grain that is resistant to floods? What are they telling you? They've modified it. They've started, okay, this is what we have and this is what we need to do. Now, the same applies to any research that is related to forestry, that is related to diseases. It's understanding. Right now, we read that Uhuru and the group that are in the UK were mandated to have a PCR test. Okay? Now, all the PCR test does, apart from just being sensitive, it ensures it picks out details that a rapid test cannot pick up about the existence of this particular virus and other details relating to it. And that's why they're insisting on it. But the point is, every time we talk about some of these things, only a select few in the country understand what these things are about. It is important for it to be just basic public knowledge. Not you read the paper and you're now, what on earth is this piece? What on earth is this? Explain it so that more and more people understand it and know it.
Let's take a break then at 6:30. Let's see how the roads are looking like, and then we look at more headlines in the papers. Good morning.
You know, when you see someone being jailed, a governor or two or someone who stole, then people will fear. Because our problem is not the borrowing, it's the stealing.
We've become actually a nation of thieves. The only thing we lack is an opportunity to steal.
The guys who quote the Bible and say, I'm a Christian and all that, and you know they're thieves. Return what you have stolen 4 times. If you know that you have property or anything that you have stolen, just return and say, my God does not allow me to hold stolen things.
We are also a reflection of you, because you elect us. You know, we don't get into our office by ourselves. We are a reflection of the people who elect us.
We don't want to go to the streets. We have a constitution that enables us, assert our will.
When the legislature are now being taken as hostage by the executive for whatever reason, we are now bound by what they want us to do.
This is just outside the realms of reality. We have impunity written into the DNA of our political class.
How old were you when you learned that Jeshi la Wokovu is Jeshi la Wokovu?
I can't say it very well.
And everyone knows. Okay.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
There's traffic on Mombasa Road this morning and many other places as well. Okay, so we're looking at traffic coming off Mombasa Road, and let's look specifically at this area right around Komarok and Kayole. Because of the demonstrations going on, the heavy police presence, and you're not able to move. So if you're headed in that direction, you might want to turn around now. Hopefully it will not be too much of an issue. Let's go to Mombasa. I've not looked at that for some time. KFS says that there are 3 ferries up for service. Don't forget that you must use your M-Pesa to pay for this. I think also coming on back into Nairobi, the Thika Superhighway already slow from Muthaiga towards Pangani Tunnel, and that was about 15 minutes ago, and it looks like it's building up even till now. Joining with Muthaiga Square from Kiambu Road, that's another story completely. It is the time, it is the hour. Let's see how it looks like in a short while. We're seeing traffic on Langata Road as well as coming from the Southern Bypass from the Likoni Exchange on Mombasa Road headed out. Looks like it's going to be building up slowly for now. All right, let's take a look in a short while what it looks like. SpiceFM KE on Twitter, help us out here. Text on 40127.
Spice FM, Malindi. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4
right,
Spice FM, Nairobi.
7.
Right.
State seeks court help to recover millions of cash from gold rackets. The Assets Recovery Agency has unearthed a multi-million shilling fake gold scheme disguised as timber export to Europe. The racket involves a group of Kenyan, Zambian and Cameroonian businessmen and a top law firm in the country that the agency claims is being used as a conduit to receive money from unsuspecting foreign nationals before the loot is hurriedly shared out. So the ARA has gone to court, and they say that in January alone, these businessmen received 157 million shillings from a Dutchman on the promise that they will deliver gold while hiding under the pretext that they were exporting timber to the Netherlands. They say they established that they are involved in an intricate money laundering scheme executed with the intent of defrauding foreign nationals. So in this suit, the ARA is seeking to compel Zambian nationals Bupe Chipando, Karole Simutengu and their company First Line Capital, and they want them to forfeit 25 million shillings. They also have filed another suit where they are seeking to get some money from Cameroonian Eddie Michel Malonga, Mubadala Merchants Limited, and First Cargo Logistics, and they want 50 million from these guys. According to the agency, money is shared out between the businessmen and their companies. Haraka haraka when it comes. The Zambian nationals and their company are part of a fake gold fraudsters who received more than 728 million shillings from unsuspecting foreigners between 2019 and early this year. And then they used a local law firm. Investigations established that 71 million shillings was transferred from the account held by Ochieng Opio Advocates to another account held by First Line Capital, owned by the two Zambian businessmen, while declaring that it was payment to purchase timber for export. Pana cheza na hii Kenya. Hii Kenya hii. Utaoshwa uso.
What?
Utaoshwa uso. Kama bado wewe nalala.
Alafu utaamka.
Naamuka unapata ulioshwa uso kama wewe bado nalala.
Okay. So, apparently, Ruto Maraga retirement perks are targeted. The deputy president's fat retirement perks are among those targeted for reduction by MPs, voila, according to a parliamentary report to be considered by the House. It recommends amendments to the Retirement Benefits Act 2015, which was enacted during Deputy President William Ruto's first term. All right. And they're saying, you know what, essentially, this is too much. Surely we can reduce some of these things so that there will be a little bit more to go around. What they essentially saying is that they want to reduce them. In its report, the National Assembly's Constitutional Implementation Oversight Committee terms the benefits outlined in the law excessive and wants them harmonized with those granted other officers in the public service. If the changes were to be effected, Dr. Ruto, who will finish his 2 terms as DP next year, will be hardest hit as he would pocket a reduced lump sum payout. The lump sum payment on retirement is calculated as a sum equal to 1 year's salary paid for each termed service in office. Each term served in office, sorry. So in 2017, the SRC reduced President Kenyatta's monthly salary to 1.4 million shillings from 1.65, while the deputy president was slashed to 1.2 from 1.4. So former Chief Justice David Maraga, who retired this year, will also be hit as he would see reduced perks so soon after retirement, should the cuts be implemented. All right.
Hey.
So they're basically saying it's too much, it's excessive. Let's reduce this money. We don't want it like this.
For the deputy president and
the retired Chief Justice.
Chief Justice.
Yes.
And they're not reducing it for anybody else.
No, those ones are excessive. Those 2 specifically.
Why are they excessive?
It's too much money.
I mean, what?
The former speakers also get the same.
So what is happening right now, that those who are already drawing from the perks include former Prime Minister Raila Odinga, ex-Vice President Kalonzo Musyoka, and former Chief Justice Dr. Willie Mutunga, which means the cuts will only affect other benefits like monthly pension. Apart from the Deputy President, others to be affected are Mr. Odinga, Mr. Musyoka, Dr. Mutunga, speakers of the 2 houses, and the Deputy Chief Justice.
So everybody's being affected?
More or less.
Good. Then that is fine. There's
It's
nothing
okay.
to complain about. Okay. So why did the headline focus on Maraga and the DP?
Because it would draw you in for you to find out the rest of the details.
They're going, this government is going after Ruto and you see Maraga.
The way he said things.
Yeah.
Whereas it's everybody.
Kenya. What are you looking at, City?
I am looking at an interview that was had with General Robert Kiboshi. Okay? He's a chief of defense forces. Okay?
Yes.
And the same story revolves around, of course, the Al-Shabaab. But remember, last week and the week before, we talked about an article that appeared in the Business Daily regarding a reduction. They were, first of all, it began as an issue within the Department of, or the Ministry of Finance. It was raised by the Auditor General. How is it that monies from the AU that is supposed to be paid to our soldiers who are in Somalia, why there seemed to have been an issue about the amount that was expected, 8.5 billion, and there was a shortfall of some 4 billion shillings. All right? Now, it appeared like this anomaly Probably an accounting error, but the details that arise when one looks at, I'm combining all these things, is this, it wasn't an accounting error. Monies are actually paid for individual soldiers, meaning if there are 10 soldiers, the amount of money given is for 10. But Kenya has been reducing the number of personnel that we have in that particular area. So the EU is giving money which is commensurate with the numbers of personnel that we actually have. But now, if you look at the interview that was had with General Kiboshi, why again this headline of Al-Shabaab? As you say correctly, when you see Al-Shabaab, you want to read a little more. Yes. And how it is that the Kenya Defence Forces are actually going to deal with this. However, it isn't very often that you have a Chief of Defence Forces boss being interviewed and them talking about things as they see fit. This, in my opinion, is a very good way forward in that somebody who heads a very, very, very important section of the can actually come out into the public and talk about issues that the public may consider to be of pertinence. This really is what caught my attention.
Yeah.
But I thought I would mention that issue that we raised the other time. It is, we don't have the number of soldiers we had in Somalia when we first had. So the amount of monies that are going to be released by the EU to the AU and then to us
will be less.
It will be less.
It was a good one to have to see General Kiboshi.
Yes.
Let's hope to see more of him. Former GSU officer linked to Matu Equity Bank robbery.
Ish.
A police officer who was part of the security team at Equity Bank's Matu branch that was robbed by gunmen on Tuesday is among the persons of interest as the hunt for the gang continues. Detectives suspect the 5-man gang was under the command of a former GSU officer who was dismissed from the service in Mombasa due to misconduct, and he has reportedly been involved in a number of robberies in Matu. A multi-agency team from Nairobi was formed yesterday to assist the officers in Machakos in pursuing the criminals after police established that the gang came from Nairobi. A border operator, Sylvester Kilonzo, who was the first suspect to be arrested after eyewitnesses told the police that he had allegedly ferried 2 of the gang members from Matu to Kimangu Market, about 9 kilometers from the bank. Another rider who also ferried the gunmen after the robbery has reportedly gone into hiding. Police intend to use information that they obtained from this one border rider, which will be given, happily and freely without much coercion. We'll build a profile of the gang members and identify their possible hideout. Former what? GSU officer.
Wow. Okay. Very interesting how things happen here. So, Kenyan health workers to get UK jobs in a new pact. Jobless Kenyan nurses, quite a number of them, and other health workers will get a chance to work in the UK as part of a new scheme requested by Kenya and set to be launched today. Sources in the know say the unemployed health workers will serve in the UK's National Health Service, which is the NHS, before returning to work in Kenya. The agreement understands is expected to be signed by UK Health Secretary Sajid Javid and Kenya's Labour Cabinet Secretary Simon Chelugui, in the presence of President Uhuru Kenyatta, who's on a 3-day working visit to the UK. So this will be good news for the more than 30,000 jobless Kenyan nurses and healthcare workers, coming barely 6 months after the UK allowed skilled Kenyans without degrees to apply for work permits in Britain under the post-Brexit immigration rules. So, July 2020, UK introduced a new points-based immigration system implemented from January 2021, which lowered the requirement for job applications to minimum skill level of A, level or equivalent from a degree level under the 27-member EU block system. So this is good. Kenyans who don't have Kenyan health workers and nurses who don't have jobs here, there is a need for them in the UK. So it's being penned today, and they'll have an opportunity to then apply and go there for work and then maybe be then absorbed into the system in Kenya later on.
Fantastic.
Yes.
Fantastic. Now, you see, this is what we've been talking about. We know our biggest foreign exchange earner today is
remittances.
Kenyans. Now, if we can secure more Kenyans to go and work peacefully in these countries, then they'll be able to even send more.
True.
And all this human resource that we are training on a daily basis We'll be able to get more money coming in. We'll be able to. I mean,
Do you know our neighbors right across, just down the road here, the Sudanese, they've been at this thing far longer than we have.
of sending their people abroad.
People abroad sending money back home and remittances contributing very significantly to the economy.
Yep.
Egyptians, Nigerians, Ghanaians.
Somalis. Mogadishu is awash with new infrastructure, just money coming in. It's a big thing.
It is.
It's 6:45. Let's take a quick break and then we look at more headlines.
24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
Do your callers frequently ask you what stories made the news headlines? Introducing the Call Bulletin, courtesy of Skiza. You can now keep your callers informed and up to date with the latest news updates from KTN News, courtesy of Skiza. Dial star 811 star 795 hash to subscribe today. Set the tone with Skiza.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah!
You're listening to Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
Oh, yeah. It's 13 minutes to 7. I see Mwenye Gakuria is confused. He says it's Thursday in Diani. How is it Friday in Nairobi? It's Friday even in Diani.
You must understand that Eric's mind
Mwenye.
sometimes has a way of...
Mwenye, it's the first Friday of the week. Okay? That's what's happening in Diani as well. Now, remember the story of a teacher who, during last year's exams, was highlighted in the papers. No, the exams were earlier this year. Was highlighted in the papers for transporting the papers on foot. And the story was out there, and the Ministry of Education officials were furious and saying, why is she putting out this story like this somewhere in Narok?
Yes.
The Teacher Service Commission came to her rescue. Actually, they defended her and they recognized and they said this is a good worker because she went all out to make sure that her students are able to receive the exam papers. Now, so many months later, apparently the road that leads to that school, the Murkan Sosiani Road, is now being repaired by the county government of Narok. Through the roads department, the government is also improving the Junction Bogoria Road, the main route to the school. Earth movers have already cleared the Murkan Sosiana Road up to the Sosiana High School gate, with students and teachers now able to use it. Journalists who've toured the project established that what's pending is leveling of some sections and laying out the maram. Culverts have already been put in place to ensure proper drainage. Those same journalists went and approached the people at the Department of Roads in Narok County Government. And they were like, apana, sisi hapana ongea leo. Apana. Kazi inaendelea. There's a second story here. Remember, there's been a push by some people to have our National Pest Control Products Board declare some pesticides as harmful and therefore remove them from the shelves. There's a group that wanted 495 pesticides banned from shop shelves, citing irreparable harm that they are doing to unsuspecting consumers. Some of the products that they were arguing had been banned in Europe, the UK, and the United States, but they are still readily available in Kenya and finding their way onto consumers' plates. Of these 485 products, 24 are carcinogenic, 24 can cause damage, genetic changes, 35 can interfere with the hormonal system, 140 can affect the nervous system, and 262 products that are being sold in Kenya show effects on reproduction. Now, the Pest Control Products Board has announced that it will conduct a risk analysis of products sold in Kenya because of a directive by Parliament. According to the boss, Chief Executive Officer Esther Kimani, A team has been formed to analyze the products and ascertain their impact on human health. We have a team of experts who are in the process of doing risk analysis on the pesticides. Dr. Kimani said during a workshop on food safety, public participation will help us make recommendations on which ones we shall restrict and those that will be banned. As a country, the challenge is that we lack adequate data. We need to put in place systems to support research. As a regulator, we have also initiated the process to review all the pesticides in Kenya, she said.
Do you know, by the time you're being told about a pesticide that is harmful, it's not research that is done by us. Probably from the country where it was manufactured.
Yes.
So you're talking about data. They've used it. They figured this thing is more harmful than it is good. Okay? So you want to bring it here and conduct more research. Because the human beings in the places where they found it harmful are different from the human beings here. Poppycock. You know, sometimes those in leadership really need to learn to speak truth to issues, okay? By the time, if we were manufacturing that product here, I would understand. But usually, it isn't as though it is ours. We would be manufacturing it under license.
The only way a product is sold in this country, right, is if it's licensed by the Pest Control Products Board.
Yes, and how do they license it?
For it to be licensed, first, you tell us where it was produced and the research that was conducted. Then you come into the country, you are allowed to actually trial it in a controlled environment.
Right.
And then you give the results of that local trial in Kenya, and then you get licensed. Okay? So, if that whole thing happened and we licensed, and now you find out later that from the manufacturer's country, it has been banned, and these are the concerns that have been raised.
There.
All right? The concerns have been raised there. You already have that data that has led to the government saying restrict or ban in those countries. What would you say now is when you're saying you're forming a task force?
For what?
For what? It's a waste of time. It's a waste of resources. It's a waste of funding. Why would you want to do that?
And
Because
why,
you already have the basic.
now? In fact, this conversation about this particular 485 pesticides was started many years ago.
Yes, it was.
It's been more than 2 years. This is that you had to wait for it to go to Parliament, for Parliament to issue a directive for you to do this, and then now we form. So what is the PCBB for? Do you understand, ma? Katareo food.
That food thing, I think, is at work here.
The food.
Yes, it's definitely at work.
Food.
It must be the food.
Okay. You know, there's something that I think Kenyans may not really understand or know. Some of these bodies that were created by an act of parliament and that exists specifically to ensure that the Kenyans are served well, whether it's the Poisons Board, whether it's the research institutes. These institutions do a very good job, believe me, and they are peopled by personnel who are trained, well trained, and they know what to do. And they didn't learn how to do it yesterday. They know what to do. Now, but when there's interference from some individuals who have an interest, then you hear some really long-winded story coming up and you're wondering, what is this story for? What needs to be done is known. Those who know what needs to be done exist. And they have probably given the advice and said, this is what we ought to do. You know, it's the same story we've had with the Ministry of Curriculum Development, rather the Institute. We've been saying, people who work in those departments really know what they're supposed to do. They know.
They are experts.
They know.
These are actually people who are able to compete intellectually on a global scale. They know. It's not for want of that particular resource.
No, it isn't. It isn't. It's just that they give the advice and somewhere along the line, because of political and other reasons, it's ignored, it's twisted, it's turned, it's convoluted, and then you have a discussion about task forces.
What PCPB should be doing is telling us, all right, so this is the reason why we have not had this conversation so far. Because even now, saying that you formed a task force, and you don't even say, this task force has 2 weeks to present a report. This is just pushing the can down the road. We are not going to take action on this particular matter until, let's say, sometime next year, if at all. Final story, Ndu, or City.
Yeah, I have one that glitters.
Okay.
Okay. You know how they say all that glitters is not gold?
Yeah.
Apparently, there's a gold racket, and it is mega, and it has been exposed.
Wait, you're
All-
repeating the story that we did.
Huh?
You're repeating the story that we did.
Yeah, I slightly, but even in comparing to that, I'm just looking at, as you've looked at that now, the gold, just look at the other side of the story now, right? All of this money, all of this that has been exposed, looking at natural resources now, when we're talking about what is available in the country and what can be used, over and over and over again, we see that there are these resources as human that we have as human beings. There are these resources that we have in terms of natural. Where is the balance? And we continue to ask ourselves, even if it is in business,
Imagine.
what can actually be done for the economy? What can be done for the development of the people when things like this are basically going to waste? Wasting the people, wasting the resources, not being able to put them together and seeing what we can actually do.
Yeah. Man. There was a story yesterday that was done in the news in the morning about a girl who was found murdered, a university student, right? Christine Ambani, a student at Keriri Women's University, was reported dead in a lodging at Githurai, Kiambu County. And a suspect was arrested. Now, it turns out that this suspect, Innocent Kalio Makoha, a Bachelor of Special Needs Education student at Mount Kenya University, had been arrested by detectives earlier. He was now arrested by detectives on Tuesday in a rented house in Kayole. Police said he had been on the run because he had allegedly killed the girl. Earlier this year, this chap had been arrested and later released in unclear circumstances when he was linked to the murders of his brother, the brother's wife, and their 1-year-old child. It is alleged that he set their house on fire, killed his own brother, his brother's wife, and his nephew. Or niece, I'm not sure what gender was the child.
It was a boy.
It was a boy?
Nephew is a boy. Usually.
Right. So, if this is what happened, and then the gentleman was released, his own father says, I was lined up as a witness against him. I want to testify against him for killing his brother. But I did not even know that he's been released. I am now seeing him in the news that he has been arrested over another murder. And I'm wondering, what do you mean he's been arrested over murder? This man was in custody, wasn't he? His own father is not even aware what happened, how he got out. So how did police... Was he taken to court? Was he released on bail? I mean, for triple murder, bail and bond must be very high. For him to have afforded to come out and his parents are not aware.
But they had said that the reason why they let him go because there was some discrepancy during the investigation. So on that alone, they had to let him go. But the father was actually saying if it was their wish, he should have actually stayed in custody because he had always been a troublesome child to them. So they didn't understand why they would. Can you imagine? It gets to the point where your parents are saying, actually, you know what? This fellow needs to be locked up.
And this fellow, it is recorded, complained that his parents favored his brother
over him
and the brother's family.
There's a whole story there, a deep story. Good morning. It's now 7 a.m.
Spice up your life.
Good morning. This is the Newswire. I'm Leah Ubaga. Nearly 400 COVID-19 patients are in dire need of oxygen across various health facilities in the country. Health CS Mtai Kagwe says there's been a rise in the number of COVID-19 deaths as the dominant variant is Delta. He further says that the variant is proving to be difficult to treat and manage.
We can already see an increase in demand of ICU beds. We can see an increase of demand in oxygen requirements. As you remember, we had gone down to less than 100 people needing oxygen around the country. And as at yesterday, we are closing to nearly 400. Current one now we are experiencing is the Delta variant, which is proving to be difficult and very virulent in terms of management. It is our hope that you'll be able to contain it.
Kagwe is also calling on you to avoid attending political rallies as they are putting you and your loved ones at risk of contracting the virus.
We are appealing to our political class to please be sensitive to the situation that is currently in play as far as Kenya is concerned. We are also asking the citizens that please avoid those political gatherings because nobody is forced to go to a political gathering.
Some leaders have been at pains to explain Deputy President William Ruto's bottom-up economy approach. Kenyans on Twitter yesterday took to their accounts to laugh at such individuals who support the Hustler Nation party but aren't able to explain their manifesto. The big question, however, remains, do you understand what the DP says each time he refers to the bottom-up economy? Here are some of the leaders who've tried to explain it.
By working from the bottom down. Yeah, from up to from top to bottom.
If you did this and you say bottoms up, this is the bottom. Mtu anameza kila kitu.
Bottom up means if I have a bottle of water here and you put it bottom up like this, it means the bottoms are up. It means that somebody wants to empty the coffers of government.
Meanwhile, here is Ruto's and some of his supporters' explanation of the approach.
Muache kukwama kuangalia wheelbarrow. Nyuma ya wheelbarrow kuna economic model inaitwa bottom up ambayo itawezesha mwananchi mwenye hana kazi apate kazi.
Ametuambia bottom up itaangazia mambo ya potatoes ambayo ndio kitu ambayo sisi tunalima hapa.
Tunawaambia sisi tumejipanga kama mahasla tukipanga uchumi ya mwananchi wa kawaida kwanza.
And finally, the Director of Public Prosecution Nudin Haji wants a 3-judge bench to hear and determine a case filed by former Treasury CS Henry Rotich challenging his prosecution over the Quimarare and Aurora Dam scandal. In a statement, the DPP says that the application by Rotich has raised substantial questions of law that need to be heard by a bench. That's the Newswire. I'm Leah Ubaga.
Spice FM, Nakuru.
Okay, so we're still looking at traffic on Mombasa Road, especially around Imara Daima headed out. So that issue at the Shuja Mall, Kayole Manyanja route, look for an alternative, please. Fires are still burning this morning because of demonstrations and because of, further to, demolitions. So please be very careful. Headed in that direction, you might want to think twice. You want to turn around and use an alternative route to get out into the city. And we're also seeing spillover traffic at around North Airport Road and then going towards Outer Ring as well. So use an alternative route this morning. It looks like there will be some heavy traffic in that area today. Langata Road coming from the Southern Bypass doesn't look too bad, not right now. It's probably going to heat up as we go along. Coming off of Thika Road into the city, that is also building up, especially at the Pangani underpass headed out into the city. Ngara, also traffic this morning. Keep an eye on things. Talk to us also. Help us out here to be our eyes. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text on 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
5 minutes after 7. Kenya's biggest conversation gets into the second hour, and we thank you very much for tuning in this lovely morning wherever you are. Yes, it's the first Friday of the week. It's Thursday, the 29th day of July. CT, as we begin the hour, today's proverb.
A rooster is not expected to crow for the whole world.
A rooster is not expected to crow for the whole world.
Mm-hmm.
Where is this proverb from?
African.
It's one of those.
It is most certainly one of those. I mean, all African communities have some proverb or the other that have to do with the rooster crowing, or the chicken doing this and the other, or the chicken and the rooster doing this and the other. So,
okay.
This particular one just focuses on crowing.
And crowing ones.
Well, crowing for the homestead, really. Yes. Roosters don't even crow for the village. It's just a homestead.
Okay. Our guest this hour is Gilbert Ngaira, local representative for their World Children Global Charity. Good morning, Gilbert.
Good morning, good morning.
Karibu sana to the Situation Room.
Asante sana.
We're glad that you could join us.
Thank you.
What do you call a rooster in your back neck of the woods?
Whoa, a rooster.
Just call a rooster.
No.
He is buying time.
Oh.
So that
they can figure out, yes.
I know what a chicken is.
I know the cuckoo in general.
Cuckoo I know in general, but this rooster.
Of the cuckoo, which one is?
It doesn't have to be one word. It could be a compound word that explains what a rooster is. But let's start with chicken. What is chicken called?
Ingoho.
Okay.
Bas.
So a rooster would be what? Ingoho strong?
Ingoho mundu.
It could also be guku.
Okay. So, the World Children Global Charity. You're here because we want to have a conversation on what's happening in London. Our President Uhuru Kenyatta is co-chairing a meeting with UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson on global partnerships on education. This is a summit that's been taking place since yesterday and today, which is also a fundraising event.
Yes.
Where they're seeking to raise 5 billion shillings over the next 1 year.
Yes.
To support education in how many countries?
90 countries.
5 billion divided by 90.
$5 billion.
$5 billion. 90.
500 billion shillings.
Billion.
So tunaweza pata 100 billion hivi.
Kitu kama hiyo.
Tukicheza poa.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. What's this conference all about?
So this conference is looking at the disadvantaged or the low-income countries and the gap in education, and their world as a global charity focuses more in mobilizing resources to empower governments to fund education in the low-income countries. So, as part of the GPE, the Global Partnership on Education, their world is one of the main partners there. So the main idea is to mobilize resources and fund governments in the low-income countries to be able to support support education, and mostly for us, our focus is on early childhood education.
Okay.
Yeah.
And this support, because I have very many questions.
Yes.
But let's start with this support. What exactly are we talking about? Are we hiring teachers? Are we improving infrastructure? Are we developing infrastructure from the beginning? Are we buying books? What are we doing?
Can I piggyback on your question?
Sure.
So that we really load it on. Okay. And are there checks and balances so that even as the money is being given, is it given in tranches saying we give you for the first 3 months and this is how we're going to check and we're going to determine? Are there any such things put in place?
So just to start with your questions, the funds, yes, are given as a block, depending on the necessary needs of a country. And yes, all those factors are the main factors we look at when you look on education. Okay. Talking of funding, salaries for teachers, infrastructure, we have programs like the school feeding programs. All these things are supposed to be informed, learning materials and all this. So what happens is that the GP is at the global level. Once these funds are given at a country level, we have each country has their own mechanism on how this money now is disbursed in various places. In Kenya, for example, it's through, if it's the primary and going upwards, it's through the national government. If it is pre-primary, it will now go to the government, national government, then be directed to the county government to support the early childhood learning and the TVETs and all that. Yeah.
Okay.
Then if there are checks and balances, yes, we have internally we have We have the constitution. We have the constitution. We have the Basic Education Act. We have policies in place that are supposed to guide on how these monies are allocated in various places and how they are utilized.
You see why I raised the question, Mr. Ngaira, is this. The same checks and balances that you've referred to already exist when it comes to monies being given to the counties, when it comes to budgets that are allocated to ministries within the government. And yet, we perennially find ourselves in a situation where we're asking, there was all this money that was spent, where on earth did it go?
Did it go to?
Yes.
Yeah.
So, in the same way I'm asking, the accountability quotient that is required of those who will be given this money, the checks and balances specifically, is there an arm that, or is there funding, or is there a capacity by the donor to monitor, determine that, as I said, because donations are specific, they're targeted.
They're targeted, right.
Yes, so is there a way in which we can determine that the money actually gets utilized or used for what it's supposed to? Aside from the umbrella checks and balances that we find within our constitution, are there anything else? Do they have bodies, that independent bodies that come and monitor and say, okay, you say this is what you've done.
Yes.
We are sending our monitors to you to determine.
Yes, to come and do it. Yes, there is, because you also, the Global Partnership on Education is not just partnering with government, it's partnering with private sector and as well as the civil society. And within these two bodies, you know mostly from the private sector, if they are giving money, there must be a clear way of accountability. And one of the best way has been through the civil society organizations as well, because they also work very closely in the community level and can able to help and inform the implementation of these processes on the ground.
Okay.
Yeah. Forgive me, Gilbert, but I want to take us back,
Yeah.
because I think we skipped a step.
Yes.
You are here, you work for Their World.
Yes.
And we are talking about the Global Partnership on Education.
Education.
Who's Their World, and who started Global Partnership on Education, and how do you guys come in?
Good. So Their World is an organization that was started by the Sarah Brown. Sarah Brown is the wife to the former Prime Minister in the UK, Gordon Brown. Yeah, and it came about out of her passion on education globally. So basically, it's just to mobilize resources and ensure that every child is given a chance to access quality education.
Okay.
That is what Their World is. And now, Global Partnership for Education is a body that brings together like-minded organizations that are focused towards education, global education for all children.
Who started the GPE?
It's many people. It's as I said, it's a space where people with different interests. Their World is focused on education. Then you come and find another private partner who's focused on giving towards education, and they all come together and mobilize resources around it.
The reason I'm asking that is because we've seen our president and the current prime minister being very active on this.
Yes.
Here they are now co-chairing this meeting. Earlier we saw them doing a Zoom call with President Uhuru Kenyatta in some school in Westlands.
Yes.
And I'm wondering, so are the two governments leading it and then everybody else comes into support? Or was it started by Their World and other organizations and then the governments were co-opted?
Yeah, so you're talking of Their World, UNICEF.
It's because we're talking about the beneficial owner.
You're talking of more like UNICEF, the big bodies that have engaged a lot on matters development, like UNICEF, Their World, Save the Children Global, World Vision, all these other development agencies, who are also, through their mobilization skills, were able to bring in private partners for the purpose of raising funds. And because these children belong to a nation, they have to incorporate the government, because all these governments are mandated to take charge of matters education in their respective countries.
Okay, and as we have previously seen, they are the ones then who determine what these needs are, essentially, then to see how they will be applied. Are they the ones who say, actually, what we need in this area, this demographic is this? Or are they taking advice from, as you said, national government, county government when it comes to pre-primary and then moving forward to TVETs and then tertiary? Are they taking the advice from the ground in terms of what is needed, or are they taking a bird's eye view and giving their opinion as to then how this support will be spent?
Yeah, they're taking it both way. When I came in, the beautiful conversation that was happening of bottom-up approach and top-down approach. It's both strategies. Because most of these organizations have worked and are still present in respective countries, right from the grassroots, they are able to interact one-on-one with the direct needs that are happening through multi-stakeholders engagement. So you're talking of parents, communities, teachers, children. In the case of organizations like UNICEF or World Vision or Their World, right on the ground, so that you get to understand the main needs.
Okay.
Yeah.
And this is, and it may be a sensitive one, but is this being done because governments in these low-income countries, as you've talked about them, are unable to provide quality education for the country's children, or that they're not able to do enough? Is this stepping in because they're unable, or that there is a gap?
Actually, there is a gap.
Clearly,
and the gap narrows down to resources. I'll give you an example. We focus a lot on early childhood education. And you realize, globally, we have around 175 million children that are that do not attend early childhood education. That is a gap by itself. We are supposed to reach around 140 million children with quality teachers. That means there's a gap in teacher training on that particular level. And then when you look at the gap, you're asking ourselves, so what brings the change? We'll go back to our conversation on resources. So when you look at how much is budgeted for nationally towards these particular elements, then you realize there's a huge gap.
Yes.
Yeah. For example, in Kenya only, we have around 2.7 million children accessing early childhood education. 1 out of every 5 children in Kenya accesses early childhood education. It's supposed to be a flip. Globally, it's 4 out of 5 children access education. Then we are asking, why is our statistics flipped compared to the global? And when you come down, everything goes around resources. Like resources carry 60-70% of the whole issue. That is why mobilizing resources for this process is very key.
I think it still goes back to that question. Maybe you can expound a little bit, because then it is clear that the resource is not available.
Yeah.
Right? To the extent with which we would like it to be. However, for each region for each area, you have different problems.
Yes.
Right?
Definitely.
So it cannot be blanket that it's because of a resource, we don't have enough money. It could be that there's not enough money to buy or to source for books here. And in other parts of the country, in this day and age, we still have children who are not able to learn within a structure. There's no building.
Yeah, true.
They're learning outside.
Yes.
There are others who are learning in makeshift buildings. That's a resource issue as well. So if you have something like that, you then have multiple effects of, if you don't have a building, my goodness, where are you getting books from and things like this? So different areas have different problems.
Yes.
Are you able to then treat it with this blanket resource approach?
No, not at all. And actually, just to add on what you said, there was an element of no infrastructure, but there's also an element of infrastructures that have been established and have no children. Because again, now the issue of politics comes in. When especially at the local level, now that considering early childhood education is a devolved function, when it comes to support of early childhood education in the community, of the factors we have talked about, teachers training, school feeding program, classes, water and sanitation, because all these factors are needed there for the children to learn comfortably. But if you look at all the rest that I've mentioned, apart from the structure, apart from the class, everything else is soft. It's not something you can see.
Sure.
And when it comes to politics, it's people, mwananchi,
wants visible,
wants to see something. when the MCA, for example, comes in a ward, and the first question they are asked is, what have you done for us? If this person just goes and establishes a class, and when they are passing, they see the class they are established by this Mheshimiwa. In their head,
Mheshimiwa is working.
Mheshimiwa is working. But the question is, the location where this institution has been, this structure has been put, do we have enough
Does
children
it make sense?
that can access it? Yeah, because when you're talking early childhood education, of course, the age is lower.
Yes.
It's a place where a mother should be able to access, drop the kid, go to work, come back, collect their children.
Yeah.
But the way it has been done, of course, it brings all those disparities. So what happens is different countries, like in Kenya context, different counties have different numbers of children that are supposed to access early childhood education. So you'll find a county like Taita Taveta or Kwale County compared to Mandera. You see, the needs will be a bit different. When you're looking of geographical area in Mandera and how children can be able to access this facility is also different. So all those factors need to be put in place, and this calculated one by one to be able to ensure that each county gets what they deserve to support this process.
I'm going back to what I asked earlier on. I think I didn't ask it well. You talked about the availability of resources, but I sometimes think that the factor that influences these situations more adversely is not the availability of the resources, but rather the management of it.
That is also true. That's also very true.
Yes, and that is why the accountability factor that I'm still going back to comes into play.
Yes.
Because even if you get this money and it goes to the counties, even if it goes down to the sub-counties, there is still no guarantee.
Level of accountability.
Yes, there is still no guarantee that just because you say it has cascaded to that level, that the goal or the purpose for which it was intended will actually be achieved. And that's why I was asking, what is it? In concrete terms, what processes are in place to ensure that whatever is demanded of the recipients is actually fulfilled? Yes.
I'll try to explain it in a way that probably is quite simpler.
That is what I want. I want
we
it to be
have
simple so that I can understand it.
In the case of like pre-primary education in Kenya, apart from just the act and the supporting policy, we have the pre-primary policy, education policy, which highlights very, very important issues that can help anyone who wants to go and verify. One will be the capitation. It provides capitation. For example, each child in early childhood education requires around 2,500 shillings a term to be able to access, to fully go through learning. So what we'll be saying now is how many children, how much money has been brought to this particular county, and how many children do we have in this this particular county that are supposed to access these services. And then when you go there and just multiply the numbers, I'm personally a numbers person and would like to look into, yes, this 2,500 is supposed to look into supporting teachers, school feeding program, infrastructure, water, and all that. So if I come there and parents are still paying for that particular service, then that means there's something, there's a gap. So something has to be checked through. If we come and get, in some places we've seen where some of the finances can be put towards, remember I talked about visible, towards bursaries instead of supporting this particular cause. So that in the community, because when you sit in your compound as a local leader, women are streaming in with their children, and they lack school fees, for example. So then you try to find where to get this money from, and in most cases, in a few places we have seen is that some of these resources that is meant for example, to go towards the early childhood level will be, say, the component food might be taken to
support bursaries.
To support like bursaries. So it is still supporting education, but in a wrong budget line and a wrong focus, which is politically correct at that particular time. So if we just reinforce all the partners involved, because it can't be a one-way traffic. All partners involved, because if I give you my money, I also want to see how that money is utilized. Yeah. So when I come to the community, those are the gaps we're trying to look at. And so the NGOs, the private sector, actually private sector support through the NGOs to ensure that all this is followed through. Yeah.
So the metrics are those. If you look at the budget lines, 2,500 capitation per child, how much goes into this, and the other.
Exactly.
Then do you also factor in, because you started by saying how much money has gone to the county,
yes,
and then how many children are there?
Exactly.
Why not the other way around? How many children are in this county? That determines how much money goes, because it's capitation per child.
True. So the thing is, with the new the county, the devolved function. Remember when initially the education bit was all national. Then the early childhood education and TVET was devolved.
Yeah.
The biggest gap is to know how many children, and we still need to get those statistics, how many children are
in the age group
of accessing early childhood education in the various counties. That is still a gap, and I'm sure that is an area most development partners or even the community should be able to establish, because once you know that, then it's easier to come the other way around.
Okay.
Yeah.
I want to go back now that you've brought in the numbers. You talked about these numbers earlier. Said in the case of Kenya, we have 2.7 million children accessing early childhood
education.
But you said this is just a fifth. How many classes are we talking about? Because if we say that 2.7 million is a fifth, what we're saying is about 10 million children should be in nursery.
Yes.
In how many years, or how many years of nursery class?
This is 2. You're talking the 2 years.
So the 2 years.
Before
At what age do they enter this level of education?
From any time from 4. From 4 years to 6 years.
There's a gap in my mind, and maybe walk me through this. If we say that 10 million children should be in nursery at any given time in Kenya, that's about 5 million in a class. So a year, 5 million should be joining Form 1, right? Not Form 1, Standard 1.
Standard 1.
Right?
Yes.
But we see, when we get to Standard 8, only about 1 million children sit exams.
Yes. And you see the gap.
Yeah, it's a huge gap.
It's a huge gap, and you see,
because if we should have had 5 million entering Standard 1, and we only have 1 million doing Standard 8,
yeah,
4 million
and right now we are saying 1.3 million are joining Standard 1,
yes,
and about 1.3 million are finishing Standard 8. It works. This other gap of the extra 8 million children that you're saying should be in school and they're not in school is what I'm wondering. Where are these children?
Then also, remember you're comparing from early childhood to class 8, right?
Yes.
There are many other factors in between those years, because we also have a huge drop rate at class 4 going to class 5, and in other places class 7 joining class 8.
Why?
Yeah.
Mostly is, do I want to call it societal pressure or factors? Yeah, because in there are many other factors surrounding early pregnancies, for example, for girls class 4 to 8. There's there have many factors. One is early childhood education, not early childhood education, but child labor, early pregnancies, poverty as it is, because
going to the next level, you need a little bit more to
money.
send your child to go to school.
Yes.
And that little bit more that we can see is little money.
Exactly.
For these families involved is actually a lot of money.
Exactly.
So they'd rather pull their children out of school to go and work for an extra shilling than keep them in school because they don't have the money to do so.
Exactly.
And you'd be surprised at the numbers that actually do this.
No,
Exactly.
I'd be surprised because, look, I'm looking at it holistically. Gilbert, you're saying currently 2.7. So let's say in each of those two classes, you have about 1.3 million children in nursery. 1.3 million will join Standard 1.
Yes.
I can see that number in Standard 8 because it's about 1-point-something million sitting KCPE in Standard 8. And I am seeing throughout this period a government that is very, very focused using the provisional administration to get children to school.
Yes.
And there's a direct effort in that, trying to get children to school and to maintain them in school. So when there's a drop of about 200,000, I can see you now explaining that way.
Yes, yes.
But you see, all this, you're saying, is still just a fifth of the children that should be going to school in the first place.
And actually,
there's about 8 million children who do not
access
go
it.
even to nursery.
Exactly.
Where are these children?
That is the bigger question.
No, you tell me. You're the one who is.
That is a bigger question because these children are with us. They're in the communities.
Our statistics from the Kenya KNBS show that in 10 years, our population grows by about 10 million. That means about 1 million children a year. If 1 million children, 1 million children are born in a year, how can you expect 5 million children to go to nursery that year?
Cumulatively. Ukirudi nyuma kidogo.
No, still, children who were born in 2021 will join nursery in what? 4 years' time?
2024.
Right?
Yes.
There's 1 million that were born this year, the ones that will be joining nursery in 5 years' time. But Gilbert is telling us that 1 million children are born this year, but in 2025 we should be expecting 8 million children to join nursery. Where? Where from?
Let me ask the question. Do we have an ever-increasing population? Does it even out or is it declining?
Actually, let me just, I need to correct something here. The ratio of 1:5, it's cut across the 90 countries. The 90 low-income countries that are being supported.
So it's
not just Kenya alone.
Okay.
Yes.
That
maybe
makes sense.
that's maybe I need to clarify that. So that we work on the numbers,
disturbing,
right?
huh?
Yeah, we have ghost children.
Yeah.
we start that earlier. So by the time they're adults,
yes.
Gilbert Gaira is the local representative of Their World Children Global Charity. We're having a conversation about what's happening in London, UK. Our President Uhuru Kenyatta and UK Prime Minister, what's his name? I'm about to say Gordon Brown. Now that you brought in Boris Johnson. Boris Johnson are co-chairing the Global Partnership on Education, which is, discussing education, supporting education in 90 countries where 80% of the world's out-of-school children are, seeking to raise 500 billion shillings over the next couple of years to support this education. So we are looking at, in the case of Kenya, how does that money come in? How does that money support our education? And what needs to be highlighted? Let's take this break. We want to take a look at traffic and what's happening on the roads, and then we continue the conversation. Good morning.
(24/7) around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM. Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM. Spice FM.
Hey, it's getting hot in here. The media has greatly contributed to the moral rot that we experience in this country.
I remember a senior politician telling me, point blank, nobody steals in the field, it's stolen in the granary. So my friend, if you're going to win an election, jipange kwa granary.
I think we are suffering from Stockholm Syndrome. Our violator and abuser is also our redeemer in our mind.
The whole political class, the whole political institution is rotten. It is based on ideals that cannot progress our country forward.
The weather with Spice
It's
FM.
cloudy in Nairobi at 14, highs of 21 and lows of 13 today. Light rain at 12 in Nyeri, highs of 19 and lows of 13. It's also raining in Nakuru at 14. It'll come down to lows of 13, going to highs of 21. 22 will be the high in Eldoret, where it's also raining. It seems to be raining across the country, which is also doing in Kisumu at 19. Highs of 27, lows of 13. Rain showers in Kakamega at 19, highs of 26. 28 will be the high in a rainy Mombasa, and it's sunny for a change in Malindi, highs of 28 and lows of 24. Mostly sunny conditions looking out into Kampala, highs of 27 and lows of 18. It's mostly cloudy in Dar es Salaam at 22 with highs of 29. Looking into Johannesburg, it's clear at 8. Temperatures are dropping slightly, highs of 18 and lows of 4. Mostly clear in Lagos at 25. We'll see highs of 30. And in Kinshasa, it's clear at 19. It'll go to highs of 32 and lows of 21.
Spice up your life.
Okay, so around that Imara Daima stretch this morning on Mombasa Road, we still have that issue, and looks like it's going to be some time coming for that. If we're looking towards the north of the city, that issue around the issue around Donholm, we're looking at that whole Kanyanja area, still having a problem there. We're going to see police presence as those demonstrations against the demolitions continue this morning. So if you can use an alternate route, it is highly advised to do just that. It's building up on Langata Road. It's building up on Gong Road as well. And we're looking at Uhuru Highway through from Nyayo Stadium through to Westlands, in and outbound. Some heavy traffic in that area. Let's look at Jogo Road, coming round Makadara onto Kaloleni and then out on towards Landis Road. It's building up there as well. Thika Road, red, coming in from Kiambu Road and joining Muthaiga Square out into the city is where we're seeing traffic as well. Nothing too sticky right now. It's our normal morning traffic. We are in the middle of traffic hour. Let's see what happens in a short while. Remember, where there's fire, stay away. At least for now. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text on 40127.
Spice and everything nice. All right.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Kenya's biggest conversation, it continues. In the room with you this morning is CT Muga, Nduoko, Eric Latif, and our guest, Gilbert Ngaira, local representative for Their World Children Global Charity, discussing the Global Partnership on Education Summit that's taking place in the UK yesterday and today, and the support that our education sector receives from various quarters. If we look at the last number of years. In fact, we were having this conversation just the other day when free primary education was rolled out in the country in 2003. It received a lot of support from the UK government and other partners. World Vision, of course, have been here for a long time, and then your organization was born and it came in, it's been offering support. So there's a lot of support that comes from external partners, and there's a lot of money that comes from our local budget. Education receives the highest amount of budgetary allocation each year. Can we see where the money goes? If we just, when you go around the country, as you're touring the projects, as you're inspecting the projects that you're supporting, knowing full well that you're supporting, there are others who are supporting, there's the government itself that's putting in money into it. Do you see where the money goes?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. Yes and no. And this will still throw you back to what we were discussing earlier. There was a question that was thrown. We have a huge number of enrollment, but we have a very, very low number of exit of students when it comes to class 8. And as I mentioned earlier, there are so many factors in between. But if you dig deeper, it's the main question to ask is, why do we have all these gaps? Because even if you have the facilities and then you don't have the enough number of students or learners that are exiting through the system, what are the factors? And those are the factors that for us as Their World, we are focused on. We are focused on the right before you go into primary. Because by the time you get to primary, the brain development of a child happens mostly pre-primary. So we are asking, are we giving these kids the right foundation to be able to sustain the primary journey? Because you go to certain counties, and I like mentioning Kwale County, because they have done a lot. By the time I was just visiting to go and see what is happening there, not like we've supported anything there, but we've just been engaging with them to be able to know what has been happening and what continues to happen and how can we work together. And you realize just within 10 years, the transition rate of within that county has increased so hugely. And we have so many girls attending education and completing, which is a huge factor for the nation. And when you go back, you ask, why is that possible? And the question is very simple. Focusing on the lower level, the early childhood education, where this is the period where the brain development of a child happens. And I'll throw something very personal to you guys so that you also get to understand. I personally did my class 8 at 20 years. I missed primary. I missed pre-primary. And I went a bit into primary, and I was one of those people that dropped off school
at standard 4
at first week of class 5.
Okay.
And I went to explore the world. I became a street child. I became all those things for like 7-8 years. Took another few years for rehabilitation. Then I'm hitting back to school when my counterparts are like 6, 5 years. And so I have to capture everything. But because of being out there and getting exposure of the world and all that, it kind of makes you even sharper. But the thing is, did I have to drop out of school if I got a better foundation? And I have many other friends that this similar thing happened. And I'll try to draw you some level of statistics. In Kenya, for example, I just started by saying that we have an enrollment of 2.7 million children on pre-primary. Of this one, we have 1.9 million in public schools, and 8, and the difference is in private pre-primary schools. We are also talking of teachers, which is a main factor in ensuring these kids grow. We have around 92,000 teachers as at 2019. 53 of these are employed by county governments.
53,000.
53%.
53%.
Yeah, of this is.
So the 92,000 is the total number of pre-primary education teachers.
Yes.
Okay.
Then 47% are employed by privately. So here you realize in some ECDs, parents also chip in to make sure that their children are at school and teachers are paid. Now, that means we are at a ratio of 1:37. One teacher is to 37 learners compared to what the policy actually requires of 1:25. Now,
that is at the ECD level.
At the ECD level. We have not even gone to the primary level. And yet, this is the most important. Maybe I should also highlight for you why the benefits of the pre-primary. Because that is very important. When you're talking of the dropout and completion rates, all these factors up there, it all starts on how you build the child from the early stage, when their brain can develop and learn and acquire as much as it's supposed to acquire. So one of the main benefits is like they are likely actually to be in school throughout, because this is something that when you introduce to them early and they get to interact with it and understand the importance of it, chances of them dropping off is very minimal. We can reduce that by a very, very high percentage. It also develops resilience, because when you are introduced to learning early enough, as you continue learning, it's not a hassle. You don't feel like you're being pressured to learn. Yeah,
you enjoy it.
Yeah, you enjoy it, or it just becomes a part of you. Right. But when you don't do that and you just drop someone in class 1 or 1 year of nursery, then class 1, they do not still understand what this is. So the chances of losing it along the way is very high. And that's why we have a lot of dropouts, mostly in public schools compared to private schools. Because in private schools, parents are able to pay more to ensure from the early stage their children get the basic start.
I'm looking at all of this, the support that is being raised, these two principles in the UK today, having this funds drive, the organizations as yourselves who are here in the country putting this together, the situation on the ground, and then I look at the education policy, which is going to take a shift in the coming months as prescribed by the committee advising the president of this country. And I'm asking myself whether all of these things truly are working in tandem towards the achievable goal of making sure that there's quality education within a reachable proximity to families around the country, and that every need for each institution is actually met. Is this something realistic right now? Because there's so many wheels turning at the same time. Is everybody focused on this goal. Because when we talk about quality education, it's not just that there is an institution in the neighborhood that has a library and has books and has quality teachers. It must be looked on globally. Globally, I mean collectively for the country. Is everybody working towards this? When we are seeing these funds being raised, is everybody appreciating that importance of saying, you know what, as a whole, this is where we are all going? Because for me, if it's not that, then it would seem as if everybody's working in silos and achieving their own goal without contributing to this bigger pie.
Actually, if you ask, we also need to give credit to government where it deserves. One of the most important thing for any institution is its legal frameworks and its processes. So, for example, you're talking of 844 moving into CBC, for example. And if you dissect it, the structure it's organized in a way that with the right support, it actually transitions smoothly, in the sense that from class 5 going upwards, they are still working under the 844 until they exit. But the ones coming below them, they are already in the CBC system, which is now, which brings them in. By the time their upper primary counterparts are done, the system will fully be integrated. But the bigger question we are asking for us is the global summit. So 20%, the global summit requires that 20% of each country's national budget be allocated towards education. Now, we are saying that is not just enough. We need around 10% of this 20% allocated to the education to go towards early learning. Because if we have that at that level, that means we raise the chances of more girls and boys to access these schools at a very, very early age. Now, when it comes to coordination, yes, I believe we have everything that it takes. The bigger issue is the eyes. The community still need to be empowered so much to be able to hold their leaders to account. Because the leader is entrusted by the people. And this same leader is the one that oversees these resources when they go down. But so it's supposed to be that bottom-up approach where you're empowering the community to be able to also hold their leaders into account. The problem is, in most communities or in African countries, you see the politicians as the lords, and you have no power. Yet you have all the power to actually bring them to that position. So it's just a matter of using all corners to continue empowering everyone to be able to ask these hard questions.
If we now look at then, the way you've said, what should ideally be a budgetary allocation to education and to early childhood education? Of the monies that go to counties, 360 billion, right? How much is going into early childhood education?
It differs. It differs a lot.
On average percentage?
Okay, now we are looking at 10%. We currently in the country, we are at 1.8% of the budget. That goes towards early childhood education.
Of our national budget?
Yes. That goes toward early childhood education. So once that one is disbursed, different counties get differently because of course, the other factors that surrounds it.
Yeah. So then it goes back to my initial question. If you look at all the money that is spent in the education sector, from the national government, from the money that goes through the county governments, from development partners and NGOs such as yourselves, can you see where the money actually goes? In terms of, you say there's a lot of infrastructure development. Is there really? Are there new schools that are built? Are there new ECD facilities that are built? Do we have more enrollment of teachers? Only 90,000 teachers have been are currently employed. Do we have more children accessing these facilities? Are we actually getting the value for all the money that is going towards education?
Yeah, I will say yes. Because I remember when I started by saying what people see in the communities. So infrastructure, class, they are there. They are everywhere. The issue is, are they sufficiently utilized, and are they sufficiently located? I mean, strategically located. Because we also don't refute the fact that there are many gaps in terms of its implementation. The policy suggests that each ECD is supposed to be around 2 kilometers space, radius within the community where these learners can access. But when it comes to implementation, we still have most of these ECDs within schools, within primary schools.
Yeah.
And it's a county function, but primary school is a national government function.
Yeah.
So you have the head teacher, who is an employee of the national government, who is overseeing a primary school, which has an ECD, which has... so there are those few gaps. In the policy, it is stipulated. In the implementation, there's still work. There's still a lot of work to be done. And that's why we keep requesting and pushing and engaging with the various stakeholders to ensure that this happens.
You know, I'm listening to what you're saying, and as the saying goes, you have your work cut out for you. But let me ask a question that I like asking with regards to important discussions such as this one. What would success look like to you? Paint a picture of what all the effort that is put into ensuring that children get what is their due right. What is it that you'll see that if you saw in Kenya, you'd say, yes, we have succeeded?
For me, I think it is more of the ultimate. It's not at the initial level. For me, it will be how many students exit the institutions and are able to comprehend and organize their thoughts to bring value to themselves. Yeah, and because most people are still pushed to schools for the purpose of employment, because most parents, that is what they know.
Well, that's what they bank on.
Yes, that's what they bank on.
It's an investment for them.
Exactly,
as parents, right?
exactly.
Yeah, okay.
So, the question you and I can even ask right now is, where are those jobs?
Yep.
Which job are you studying or running towards? Yes. So for me, there's no success if an individual child later in their life cannot aggregate their experiences and their learnings and convert it into a profitable venture for themselves.
Yeah.
And this can be in employment. You might end up being a pilot, or you might end up being an entrepreneur. You might end up being anything. You can teach people various stuff. So for me, that is what matters. But then if I'm looking at that, the question is, where does it start?
Yeah.
It starts actually when it's like a tree. When that tree starts growing, you shape it to the direction you want it to go. So if we shape it to focus on employment, and you and I both knows that globally, white-collar jobs are not there. They are soon disappearing. Because every other thing is taking precedence. And that is what is going to help both the individual and the nation.
To get the value of education.
Yeah, to get the value of education.
Let's end this conversation, Gilbert, this morning with what you actually shared briefly, but just give us a bit more detail. So you say your own experience, went to school, dropped out, then came back to school after 6 years, sat your standard 8 exams at the age of 20. What was happening during this time, during this gap? And then how did you accelerate and pick yourself up to where you are today? In just about 3 minutes, I'm sure that's what we have, but it's sufficient for you to. People would like to hear that story.
Yeah, because of I was born and bred in Eldoret in my early years, one of the beautiful slums there called Huruma, and because of family issues, parent separations and all that, I found myself in the streets at the age of 10. Then, of course, I lived in the streets between age 10 to 17, transversing Eldoret, Kitale, Kapenguria, Lodwar, as our surviving base at that particular time. And, of course, went in alone, came back for my younger brother, then went collecting more friends, because in that space you don't stay alone. So we ended up being 7, and survival down there is not easy, especially during our time, because this is early 90s. It was really tough. But if along the way, we met a German guy who was like a missionary that rescued kids from the streets. And he approached us and spoke to us and convinced us actually to go with him in a rehabilitation center in Eldoret Children Rescue Center at the time. Then he taught us life skills. He didn't take us to a class. He taught us, all of us, the 7 of us, life skill. But remember, we were 7, but inside there were like 300 others, 350 other boys. So everyone in that institution was taught how to sing, play music, masonry or carpentry or mechanic, all those things. Because the guy never believed in formal education. He believed everyone has a skill that they can use. And luckily, I ended up become like one of the best, one amongst the best singers in the institution. So the guy started moving around with me in mobilizing resources. So he is called to go and meet a politician. I am among the the 3 boys that will go with him to go and sing. So by sheer luck, we found ourselves in the presence of the late President Moi. And he really liked it, and he looked at me and he said, "You boy, you're too talented, but you need education. You need to go back to school." And that was like a trigger in my head. I was like, "What is this school that the president is actually talking about?" And so when we went back, this guy was actually in the process of creating an international singing team, so that now we moved to Germany and all these places to go and mobilize resources that used to come back to the institution to support food. There are many others that were going to school. There are a few others that were going to school because his wife, on the other side, really believed in education. So the bright ones were actually put in classes. So fast forward, I moved from that institution to another one in Athi River, courtesy of the then PC in Eastern Province, who had been reached out to by the president. And I went to a children's home called Taraja, near Daystar University. And that is when I went back to school.
So you went back to school at that point?
Yes.
At age 17?
No. At age 19.
Age 19?
Yes.
What class did you go back to?
I negotiated. Let's just say I negotiated my way to class 8.
That's a very interesting story, Gilbert. We'll have you here because there are very many things that we can actually derive out of that. Your own experience in the conversation.
Yes.
Education, resilience, life skills, and very many other things. Gilbert Ngaira, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Gilbert is a local representative for Their World Children Global Charity. We're having a conversation about education and supporting education in the country. And as you've heard, he's shared his own story, not just of education, but of life. And you have many more to tell us.
No problem.
Keep it right here. In the next hour, we ask ourselves, so what is the best way to ensure good corporate governance and proper ownership of organizations in the country? Transparency in company ownership and control in Kenya. We'll have 2 guests joining us via video call. Good morning. It's 8 a.m.
Spice up your life.
Good morning. This is the Newswire. I'm Leah Ubaga. Fugitive Corp Caroline Kangongo will be buried today without the traditional send-off for a fallen officer. Kangongo was being sought for the murder of her colleague John Ogweno and Juja-based businessman Peter Ndwiga before she was found dead in her family's bathroom in Nyawa, Elgeyo Marakwet County. She'll not be cremated as had allegedly wanted in text messages police said were in her phone's draft folder. The police service won't participate in the burial due to the circumstances surrounding her death, which are still under investigation. However, government pathologist Johansson Odor said initial reports showed that Kangongo died from a single gunshot wound.
There was a trajectory going through the spine, through the brain. When I look at this gunshot wound entry, it was a contact wound, meaning that the gun was the skin. What made me thought so, there was a hole which is caused by the bullet, there was a soot, there was areas of burning, and what is called muzzle imprint. From what got from the investigating officers who are at the scene looked like the incident occurred at the scene. So it looked like probably she died at the scene.
You're assured of a stronger immunity response when you get mixed the COVID-19 vaccines. The Ministry of Health now says they'll start mixing COVID-19 vaccines that are being administered in the country. Acting Director General for Health Patrick Amoth says this is after several tests have proved that there is no harm in an individual getting jabs from different manufacturers. He further says that a research done in Korea showed that individuals who received the first dose of AstraZeneca and the second dose from Pfizer had a stronger immunity than those who received doses from the same manufacturer.
And data has emerged that if you get AstraZeneca or any viral vector-derived vaccine, for that matter, as your first dose and then you get Pfizer as a second dose, you get a better immune response in terms of antibody production. And therefore, based on that, countries have gone ahead to be able to practice mix and match. And especially for us, because of paucity of vaccine doses, if you get Pfizer vaccine, there's nothing that will stop us from practicing mix and match.
2 people have been burnt to death in Kiogoro area in Kisii County. The couple reportedly died earlier today after their house caught fire at around 3 a.m. The 2 are still at the scene as police are expected to arrive there any time from now. And finally, your child may soon enjoy maziwa ya watoto wa Nyayo like you did if a basic education bill sponsored by nominated Senator Beatrice Kwamboka is passed. Senators have, however, thrown their weight behind the bill that proposes the supply of milk to school children in what could herald the return of famous milk that was introduced by former President Daniel Moi. The lawmakers said the milk will improve nutrition. The bill proposes reintroduction of free supply of the milk to all pupils and pre-primary learners. That's the Newswire. I'm Leah Ubaga.
.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
All right, we're looking at a lot of folks using the ICD route this morning, then trying to connect with the Southern Bypass as an easier route to get into the city. No qualms with that whatsoever. It probably is the better way to go because right around Imaradaima still continues to read red through and through. Langata also building up all the way from Langata Estate out towards the roundabout at Timor. Bagathi doesn't look too bad. A little bit of red as you climb that hill. We're also looking at traffic on Jogo Road heading out towards Landis. It's going to take some time to get out of this one as well. Bunyala Road, that entire junction, Langata Road, Bunyala Road, Lusaka heading out into the city. There we do have a bit of an issue. Let's look at it in about half an hour and see what it looks like. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text on 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer, Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start
good
your
morning
day.
to you. 5 minutes after 8, Kenya's biggest conversation. This is the third hour. We broadcast this show every weekday morning, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. on Spice FM and online, Spice FM KE, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. We're also live streaming on our website, www.spicefm.co.ke. CT, today's proverb.
A rooster is not expected to crow for the whole world.
A rooster is not expected to crow for the whole world.
Not really.
Okay. When does a rooster become a cockerel?
When does a cockerel become a rooster?
I'm wondering.
One is Toto Kuku.
The other one is
Kuku Kubwa.
Kuku Kubwa. It's like Jogo and Jimby. What's the difference?
Jogo is now head Jimby.
Jogo is Jimby Kubwa.
Yes. That's why I use the word strong.
Maduong.
Power.
Okay. Power to our Kenya rugby women's team. The match is just kicking off in Japan. We're playing New Zealand.
A power. We ourselves are a power. You know, the fact that we can send so many teams to the Olympics, because it's not as though it's a toss-up in the air and who would like to go. You actually have to qualify. That, for me, is a huge achievement.
That's already a big win.
No, it's a big win because with every progression, with every year, you see more and more sports gaining preeminence in the country. And you see the representation at regional levels. Now it's at the Olympics. An excellent thing. Kudos to the team.
In fact, if the girls can beat New Zealand now, this morning, it's okay.
You take a holiday.
We can come home.
Okay.
Even our athletes can just say, it's okay, you tomorrow,
All of the
Patia is a
rest.
goal. Chukweni. Our girls have beaten the Kiwi girls. Let's have a conversation about business registration. You are a director in a business. Are you a shareholder in that business? Have you gone to the business registration services and included there that you're a beneficial owner, or are you not?
I have absolutely no idea what you're talking about.
You know, people have for a long time been there. You know, you register yourself as these are the directors of this company. Okay? And we went like the way we went, and we didn't get that tender. You know, the way we were trying to secure that
the way
very
two of
nice
you were trying to stand outside
multi-billion shilling tender at
Yeah, they've
KEMSA.
already written the zeros.
But the beneficial owner, the directors are different. We are the owners of the owner of the company. So the government has now been fine-tuning that. They want you to state this company that is registered. These are the directors. These are the shareholders. Who are the beneficial owners? And people have been asking, so what are all these stories, Bana? See, I registered a company. What do you expect? But let's have that conversation with people now who can tell us why they hullabaloo about this whole thing. Shigadi Mokio is an advocate of the High Court of Kenya, and she's also the Deputy Registrar for Movable Property Security Rights at the Business Registration Service. And we also have Malachi Adede. He's a founding partner and CEO of Liroja Services. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
Good morning.
It's good to have you on the show. Welcome to the Situation Room. Unfortunately, you're not here with us, but you're here with us. Now, let me just start with you, Shigadi. You work at the Business Registration Service. Which one is this?
So it's formerly known as the Registrar or the Registrar General's Office.
Yeah.
In 2015, BRS came into force through an Act of Parliament. And under BRS, we have the company's registry, we have the official receiver, we have the Movable Property Security Rights Registry, formerly known as the Chattel Registry, and then we have the Hire Purchase Registry. So marriages and societies still reside under the Registrar General's Office, which is under the Office of the Attorney General.
So you deal with businesses?
Yes.
And what is movable property security rights? That is a long one.
It is. So it's an enabling register that allows the secured creditor, once they have given a loan, to register their interest against third parties. So once you register your interest, anyone who follows after will conduct a search and know that this asset has already been encumbered.
Oh, taking a mortgage.
Yes.
It's
Not
registered.
a mortgage, it's only on movable assets.
Movable. Oh, land is
Yes,
not.
your
house
phone,
is not movable.
laptop,
Car.
intellectual property.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
I see. Malachi, good morning. Tell us about Liroja Services before we delve into this conversation about transparency in company ownership.
Good morning. Liroja Services is a company secretarial firm providing company secretarial and governance advisory. So basically, we advise boards of directors on how to comply with the requirements of the law and how to run their companies effectively and efficiently, playing oversight over management.
Okay. So basically, you deal with the companies, and do you deal with SMEs? Because I wouldn't imagine that many of the people who require information are SMEs, such as CT and myself, who have a company, and we don't even know what apart from looking for tenders,
which we never get.
When you talk about SMEs, what do you have in mind? Because
like this one of ours, we have registered a company. We're looking for tenders.
So when you look at it's pretty much a startup, a company that has been formed for purposes of making headway into becoming a entrepreneur. So there is value in advising those companies in setting up properly. There's value in getting to know what corporate governance entails for that, maybe a company with good directors. How do you separate your role as owners of the business? How do you separate your role as board of directors? And at the same time, the same people are also management. So pretty much one person wearing three hats, that of ownership at shareholder level, being a director, playing oversight over the business and reportable entity to the shareholders. And at the same time, you are also the one who runs the day-to-day activities of the business. So there is need for the support we can provide here is education and creating awareness on what one needs to do at each level. When you are wearing the hat of shareholders, what kind of decisions can you make? When you are wearing the hat of a director, what can you do? And when you are management, what are your duties to the company and to the director? So the issues, including having independent directors and all that, can become very useful.
So what can you do and what would your responsibilities be? I think we have quite a number of people who are registering these companies. And so the question would be, so if you are a shareholder, then what are your responsibilities and what is your role? If you're a director, what is it that you're supposed to be doing? If you're a manager in this company, then what are your roles? Because it would seem as though from what you're saying that people are getting these lines crisscrossed and that might eventually get them into trouble or into a sticky situation in the future. So what are the roles? Can you define those? So that people can get an understanding of what is supposed to be done where.
So when you look at the shareholder role, the shareholder is the owner of capital. For a limited liability company, once you contributed your capital and you've subscribed for shares in a company, pretty much you are only required to follow up with the directors of the company for a return on your investment and also to hold them accountable to take care of social issues, environmental issues, to make sure that the company is a good corporate citizen, so to speak. But in terms of responsibilities within the company, they do not run day-to-day, they don't make day-to-day decisions within the company. Now, once the shareholders have contributed the capital, they entrust this capital to the directors. So the directors are the ones that have fiduciary duty to the shareholders to make sure that the company does what it set out to do, which must be a legal business. Now, the role of the directors is to oversee, set this vision, mission, strategy of the company to make sure that the company is a going concern. Now, the directors do not involve themselves in the day-to-day running of the business. So they delegate the running of the business to management. Now, for SMEs, it's a bit tricky because you find that the two people or three or four individuals who are the shareholders, who are contributing capital, are also the directors. And they're also the one of them is CEO, another one is CFO, another one is operations director, and all those fancy names that we give ourselves when we start companies. So the important thing to note for anyone who is involved in a company at whatever level is that there are responsibilities set out in the Companies Act. So, and as we all know, ignorance is no defense. The moment you set up a company, you need to know. So you need to go to forums where this kind of information are being shared. You need to engage a company secretary to guide you on procedural issues when making decisions within your company. So the moment you set up the company, the roles or duties and responsibilities at whatever level you are involved in, then set it.
Let me bring you back, Shigadi, the issue of registration. And there's something that the government and your basically the business registration service had rolled out earlier in the year, and I think you had extended it. It was on the issue of beneficial owner, which was a requirement for all businesses to go back into the system and declare beneficial owner. Take us through that. Who is the beneficial owner, and why are you seeking this information, Shigadi?
Okay, thank you. So what I'll begin with is probably the why, and then I'll dive into who the beneficial owner is. So we all are aware that the government is committed towards the growth and transformation of Kenya. And this can only be achieved through transparency, accountability, and public participation. And so beneficial ownership transparency has become one of the leading, I would say, tool to tackle illicit financial flows relating to tax evasion, money laundering, corruption, and terrorism financing. So during the London Anti-Corruption Summit in 2016, through the Attorney General, Kenya made commitments to take measures in line with the company's law to establish a public central register of companies' beneficial ownership information. And so in 2017, we amended the Act to ensure that we have incorporated the fact that a company need not only give us information about their members, but they need to ensure that they have also given us who the beneficial owner is. And so back to who the beneficial owner is, a beneficial owner is a natural person, not a company. A natural person who ultimately owns or who controls now that legal person, be it a company or an arrangement, be it a limited liability partnership, be it a trust. So what we want to know is the natural person on whose behalf a transaction is either conducted. So, and it includes the person who exercises ultimate effective control over a legal person or arrangement. So what we've done is we have ensured that, because the definition is quite broad, we've tried to give the scope within which this is basically for the public listed companies, so we've tried to ensure that we have defined who a beneficial owner is, to include, given the parameters, to include it is an individual who directly or indirectly holds 10% of the shares in the company, the issued shares in the company, exercises 10% voting rights in the company, has a right to appoint or remove a director of a company, and someone who exercises significant control or influence over a company. And we went further to define what significant control and influence is, to mean someone who is able to participate in the financial and financial policies of a company without necessarily having full control over them. Like you have said, it's the shareholder is there. We actually know this is the shareholder, but clearly we see that the money probably is being diverted to someone else. So who is that person? That is what we want to know.
City has like 17 questions. Start with question number 1A.
Okay, question number 1A. The explanation is clear and not difficult to understand. But the vast majority of people who want to get into business are probably at the level where they are the only owners of the business, or they have one partner, somebody with whom they work. And chances are the business that they own isn't a limited liability enterprise. Now, how does the department that you head, how does it help the simple mwananchi? How does it help them to understand how they can organize themselves within this legal structure that you've mentioned, so that one, they can be compliant with the laws of the country, and also how that can be beneficial to them when they then seek assistance either through funding from a bank or from an institution that offers such help?
So,
if I got you right, the question is asking whether unincorporated businesses, other than limited liability companies, are affected by these regulations. Is that correct? And how then they translate this for their benefit in the market?
That is part of the question, yes. And I think if we can just start from there, like that, does this impact all companies that have been registered, all businesses, or does it only impact those that are listed?
Maybe to go with this one, the requirement to comply with beneficial owner regulations apply to private companies limited by share, public limited liability companies, the PLCs of this world, both listed and unlisted. It applies to companies limited by guarantees. So only those who have registered their companies under the Companies Act currently are affected by this arrangement. Now, where one has a business which is not registered under the Companies Act, but then that business is in turn a shareholder in a company which is registered under the Companies Act, then the regulations apply to them to the extent that they are shareholders. For the local mwananchi who have started a business, which they are, from your description, pretty much a partnership, the regulations as articulated now do not apply to those partnerships or unregistered entities. For purposes that are useful for those who are venturing into business, there are advantages and disadvantages of incorporating a limited liability company, and there are advantages for running a partnership depending on the scope and magnitude of the kind of business one is doing. So for that mwananchi who has not registered a limited liability company, they need to be at ease. The DO regulations do not apply to them up here. Shigati, do you have something to add?
You have articulated it well.
Okay, so in essence, what you're saying is, if somebody has, say, a sole proprietorship, then everything that we've been saying doesn't actually apply to them.
Doesn't.
Okay.
No.
Now, if somebody wants to understand, someone isn't listening to this show, but they are IT savvy as far as common mwananchi can be IT savvy, and they want to understand these things and get in touch with either your offices, how does one get to reach you? How does one access this information?
The information is provided under the Business Registration Service website, the brs.go.ke. We have a user manual that it even has pictures that will guide the individual on how to go about lodging the beneficial ownership information.
And
in terms of reaching us, we have customer care service at BRS, so we always are happy to assist.
Okay. Even as you do this and giving that final information in terms of what you're asking people to do as they're registering these companies, do you find that there's an uptake in information? I mean, I know that there's an uptake in the registration of business. If we were to go to the registrar, for example, you would be able to find that on a daily basis, even through the portal and such, people are registering businesses like wildfire. However, is there an uptake in this information that is helping people to do it the right way? And if there is not, apart from what we are doing now, is there adequate communication flow to let people know that they ought to be doing it in the right way?
Yes, indeed. I believe the system is quite simple. Once you log in, as long as you follow the right, because we've tried as much as possible to describe what you're supposed to do. So I believe Malachi, being our user, can speak more into how the system works and how easy it is to register a business or a company.
So I think the takeaway on this for the public user out there is that this system is automated on the eCitizen platform, on the business registration service portal. So when one logs in to register a company, as you put in the details of your directors and shareholders and company secretaries, you also declare who is the beneficial owner in that process. Now, the system is designed in such a way that an average user who knows what they're doing, I should add that, should be able to go through the process, register a company, and disclose the required information to the registrar of companies. Now, in a bid to improve on the ease of doing business, this process is done. The process of registering a company is done in such a way that you really do not need to be guided by an advocate or a company secretary for you to do that. So for purposes of our market, once one has decided that you want a company, you can dial into your eCitizen account, your own personal eCitizen account, provide the details of those people who are going to be the shareholders and directors of your company. And it is really a simple and straightforward process for someone who is tech savvy, someone who can read and understand that this is the information they require in this segment, this is the information they want me to attach in the segment. It's pretty much a straightforward process.
And how long does it take for you to get the company registered?
Shigadi can give you the correct estimated time.
An average of 2 days, as long as we don't have the back and forth, it's 2 days.
Okay. And then finally, once someone has registered a company... Okay, yes. Let's hear from you, Malachi. What would the back and forth be?
The back and forth usually is a measure of whether someone knows what they are doing or not. For example, if you are asked to provide a residential address and you didn't provide the correct address, then they will send you a correction for you to enhance that information. But if you provide it in all one go and you provided complete information, it takes 2 to 3 days. You have your company.
And then, probably just to add, the BO information will basically affect the companies that were registered before 13th of October 2020. Like Malachi has indicated, once you are registering a company, if you are registering the company now, we require you to give us the beneficial ownership information. So the companies that were registered prior to the registry being operationalized, then they require to submit the same.
Okay. Once someone has registered their company, what obligations do they have going forward with the registrar?
So when you have a company and there are prescribed information, so all information you provide to the registrar for registration are prescribed information. So the shareholder and their particulars, those are prescribed information. Directors and their particulars, and company secretary and their particulars. If shareholders change, or directors change, or company secretary change, or beneficial owner information change within a period ranging from 14 days to 60 days, you need to notify the registrar that those changes have happened. If you change shareholders, there is a chance that the ultimate beneficial owner also changes. Because if I was holding shares on my own behalf, then I transfer those shares to you, for example, but you are holding them on behalf of your children under a trust deed. That needs to be disclosed. So there is an ultimate beneficial ownership of those shares does not lie with you. You are holding those shares for the benefit of someone else who is probably a minor, or you don't want them to hold those shares now. but you've set up a trust deed under which those shares will ultimately go to them in 10 or 15 or so many years down the road. So the obligation of the person who registers a company is to make sure that all details within that company that changes over time is communicated to the register of companies, and also to ensure that the company at all times does legal business. So you don't defraud your creditors, you don't use it for tenders to get money that work is not done for example. You don't use it to receive money that are used to finance terrorism, pretty much for money laundering. So those are illegal. So as the founders, promoters of the company, you have to, it is your duty, you have to ensure that the company remains and continues to do legal business.
Thank you very much. Malachi Adede, founding partner and CEO of Liroja Services, and also Shigadi Mokio, Deputy Registrar, Movable Properties Securities Rights Division of the Business Registration Services. Asante sana for joining us this morning and for sharing the information that you have with us. Have a lovely day.
Thank you.
And time for us to take a break at 28 minutes to 9 o'clock. Kenya's biggest conversation continues after we take a look at the weather and how the traffic situation is looking like. If you'd like to get information or highlights of what we discuss on this show on a daily basis, you can do so by just checking out our social media platforms, SpiceFM KE on YouTube, on Facebook, and on Twitter. And also you can check out our website, www.spicefm.co.ke, in addition to our Instagram, where we also share the clips, SpiceFM KE on Instagram. And you can also get these via SMS. Just text the words TSR to 22, what's that number? 22840. TSR to 22840. Good morning.
Spice FM, Nakuru. 24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
Shell Helix HX7 and HX8 with Flexi Molecule technology, an engine oil that overcomes today's tough driving conditions and actively adapts to changing engine temperatures. Shell Helix. Drive on.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah!
You're listening to Spice FM. The weather with Spice FM.
It's sprinkling in certain parts of Nairobi. It'll go to highs of 21 and lows of 13 today. 13 and light rain in Nyeri, highs of 19. 21 will be the high in a showery Nakuru at 15. And we're also seeing showers in Eldoret at 14. Highs of 22, lows of 13 today. At 20 degrees, it's raining in Kisumu. Highs of 27 and lows of 18. Rain showers in Kakamega, highs of 26 and lows of 16. 28 will be the high in Mombasa, where it continues to rain at 24. It's now raining in Malindi, change from the sun. Highs of 28 and lows of 24. Sunny conditions, however, in Kampala at 21. Highs of 27 and lows of 18. It's mostly cloudy at 24 in Dar es Salaam. Highs of 29. We'll see highs of 18 in Johannesburg. It's now warming up slowly. Highs of 18, lows of 4. Sunny conditions at 11. It's raining in Lagos. Highs of 30, lows of 25, and 32 will be the high in Kinshasa. That is sunny this morning at 19.
Thank you.
The political class, the contestants, everybody is trying to outsteal the other.
Remorse is not taught in any school. Manners is something you get from your mother. You don't get it from your political party.
Why are we so unfocused as a country? Why are we spending money and resources? Yet we have real challenges in this country.
This coronavirus pandemic should teach us one thing, that universal healthcare is critical. Because at this point, whether you have a medical card that covers you, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
right around that Imaradima stretch is where traffic continues to be a thing on Mombasa Road this morning. We are still seeing that around the Kayole area, that issue there. So let's watch out. Traffic. I think police have kept those demonstrations to a dull roar, but we'll keep an eye on that. Langata Road is looking a lot better now. We just have traffic at the turnoff from the Bomas of Kenya, and it goes all the way through to Wilson now. But then at the roundabout, it looks better. All right. Then getting towards the Nyayo Stadium roundabout is where it picks up some. And we're also seeing traffic still on Gong Road, little bits and pockets of that. Muthaiga coming through to the Thika Superhighway is easing off some. Coming out of Western's, not too bad today. So it's a good day. So let's be careful as well, because the roads are a bit slippery with that sprinkle that's currently going on in Nairobi. Out of the city, it doesn't look too bad going out west, Naivasha, Nakuru, out then towards Kisumu. Traffic is not a problem here at all today. Talk to us. Should it get sticky? SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text on 40127.
Spice FM, Nyeri. Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4.
Okay, 23 minutes to 9. Kenya's biggest conversation. It continues. In the room is Eric Latif Ndu Oko and C.T. Muga. Kenya's Malkia strikers are in action now.
Yes.
We're playing Serbia. And so far,
the first set is on and Kenya's down about 5 points. But it seems like the girls seem to have some focus. Let's wait and see what happens.
will it matter?
Will it matter if what?
If we beat Serbia?
Yes, it will. It's a round robin. So you need to have...
Round who?
So the form of play for volleyball is a round robin. So all the teams play each other.
Okay.
Right?
Good competition. This
Yeah.
one.
You must play each other in the first round.
Sort of like boxing where you lose, you go.
If you're knocked out, you're knocked out. No. So there's still a chance here, but they would have to win this match to be contenders.
If we win this one, and then now we hope Serbia beaten by...
Because Serbia has lost all their matches so far. So in order to remain in the competition, Kenya...
It sounds like they're slightly worse off.
But they've played
we've only
Brazil
lost two.
Yeah.
They've lost all two.
They've lost all two. So Kenya must beat Serbia here to remain in competition. Right? So we have to wait and see what happens.
Kaja ndio hiyo.
Chepchumba is playing well today.
Bas. Chepchumba is the one who jumps.
She's
the flyer.
She's actually a striker.
Bas.
Yeah.
She's the one who flies.
Okay, what are the positions in volleyball?
Okay, so you've got diggers who are in the back court. Then you've got your setter, who is able to... She's basically the roving player. And then you've got your strikers, who take the first row.
Mm-hmm.
And if a coach is able to look at the formation properly, which they should be able to do, you should have it so that you have... So your diggers and strikers should be able to play those interchanging positions.
Mm-hmm.
So even if you are playing in the backcourt, you should be able to strike as well.
Okay.
Very rarely will you find a setter.
So a digger should
a striker
strike
as well.
No,
a digger should be able to strike.
Remember,
because at some point, volleyball is a rotational sport, you will find yourself in the front court at some time. You will find yourself in the back court at some time.
You know, think of it as football. Diggers, fullback. Okay? Now, we have fullbacks who actually run to the front and some even score. Okay?
And because now, if you're playing defense in volleyball, you will find that sometimes everybody goes to the back court to receive a ball that's coming deep. And then you might find that one of your diggers finds themselves in the front court and then must strike. If that's why you need to have players who are versatile.
Who are able to do all. And who's a liberal?
Now, that's the person who is sometimes a liberal that's the one who will have a different jersey. So they can play in the front and back court. And again, because it's a rotational sport, when the game is set, when the court is set, you cannot. If your digger is playing in the front court, it's a point violation. That is the only player who can play front and back court during a point.
Okay.
It's an interesting sport.
It really, really is.
Going on now.
Yeah.
First set.
Right.
Serbia 20, Kenya 15.
And a set is out of how many?
25.
25.
When you're playing these professional, and then in a set of 5, it's best of 5 usually at this state. Otherwise, it's best of 3, but in these ones, it's best of 5.
It's very exhausting.
They train for it.
Yeah.
Put it well.
Yeah. Yeah. So we'll tell you what happens as this continues. Now, yesterday there was a story about some issues of accountability at the Uwezo Fund. So first of all, Uwezo Fund. Who is Uwezo Fund? Uwezo Fund.
It is the government.
Uwezo Fund is this particular fund. Remember, there was a Women Enterprise Fund, there is a Youth Enterprise Development Fund, and then there was Uwezo. Uwezo was introduced in 2013 or thereabouts after the promise by the Jubilee administration during campaigns that, what's going to happen is we'd like you guys to vote for us overwhelmingly so that we avoid a runoff. If we avoid a runoff, that costs that could have gone into managing a runoff in a presidential election, we're going to put that money in a fund, and that fund will be able to support women. Uwezo Fund was born. Since establishment some 7 years ago, Uwezo Fund has supported thousands of youth and women groups and people living with disability. It has created entrepreneurs and lifted thousands out of extreme poverty. I'm reading this out of today's editorial by The Nation, which says, however, questions have emerged about its financial probity. The Auditor General, Nancy Gathungo, has released a financial report that raises serious questions about the organization's financial transactions. In particular, there are questions about purchase of items such as motor vehicle tires, and precisely that the items were supplied and paid at exorbitant cost. It's estimated the taxpayers could have lost some 4 billion shillings in the deals, which brings to the fore the question of management of such funds. It's too early to make conclusive determination of the actual losses and culpability, but the fact that the questions have been raised indicates something is not right and it has to be acted upon. It's not the first time that we're seeing these social protection funds coming in and questions arising. Okay? It is not the first. Let's start with from Kitambo. Famine is declared. Mobilization of resources, which is flagging off of food from Nairobi to go to the far-flung areas where there is a need for food. And then it emerges that those trucks never even left Nairobi County. And they were heading towards Tana River, they were heading towards Lamu. Something happens, and those trucks that are flagged off don't even go there. And then the people are said to have been the beneficiaries and they should have benefited. Then we've even come into now the other social protection funds. The one for Inua Jamii, which is for supporting the elderly. There's a one that was now launched to support the vulnerable during COVID-19. Last year, 10 billion shillings was set aside. People were supposed to be receiving some money. Those who were really vulnerable were supposed to be receiving 2,000 shillings every 2 weeks. There was the Kazi Mtaani, which was another social protection fund, which was supposed to bring in the youth, come and work, and then you get paid. There are many other funds such as these ones. Questions, even with the Inua Jamii and the other one, the social protection one for the vulnerables, have emerged. Kenya Human Rights, the Human Rights Watch, or is it the Kenya Human Rights Commission, one of those human rights agencies, conducted just a survey, and they found many people responding and saying, we went and registered to receive support, but we did not receive support. And records show that funds were disbursed to go and cater for everybody who was registered as a recipient. This is one, Uwezo Fund. It's supposed to be a fund that helps to facilitate the vulnerable, and this is the minorities, women, youth, persons with disabilities, to access this so they can start business.
Access to credit, yes.
Here we go. 4 billion shillings going somewhere where the Auditor General is raising questions. What is happening about with this? Because this is a time where CT says you're basically looking at somebody who is in dire need. This is social protection. Supposed to be receiving a meal, and you're not giving them the meal. You're eating the meal yourself.
But I don't know if it's. I think it's more than ironic that this very thing that has been set up to take care of people in a time of need, or that somebody comes out and they need this particular facility to be able to start a business whereby they would not be able to get credit through the conventional sources, right? Can't go to a bank, can't go to your whatever because the government has set it up. It is extremely ironic that to the same place where you went, those funds then have been misappropriated. Because what did we see? Because there was a long list of things that the Auditor General's office flagged. But one of them was that you're buying tires for 20,000 shillings or more above the prevailing market rate at that point. And then you find that these losses have gone into the billions. Now, okay, it's okay. Those numbers, it's not okay that the money was appropriated. I'm saying it's okay for those numbers. But for me, when you take the 4 billion that cannot be found, translate it into what it would have been able to do. Because these people who are borrowing, because Uwezo, the way it is, you cannot go as an individual and borrow from Uwezo. You must then have formed a group and you must have a viable plan, and then they maybe see your plan, and then after that they are able to afford you the facility. There is a viable business that could essentially have been helped, and then families, not one individual, families' lives then would have been impacted as a result of the profits then garnered from this business. How far gone does it have to be to say that, okay, here's this fund, it's great, but now let's look at ways in which we can siphon from and pilfer this thing to smithereens, and it doesn't matter about these people who would have essentially gotten something from it. For me, it's more than eating the sauce. You're eating the sauce plus its children. So why we have things set up like this and you eat everything plus the seed? Moving further than that, now that you've found these discrepancies have taken place, what you're going to do about it, we don't know. Who is going to be called to book? We don't know. Whether an investigation is going, because it's not her job, she's just supposed to tell you the anomalies that she has found. Whether you choose to pick it up thereafter is totally up to you. But it is lost. It's gone. I find it very hard to be able to resonate with these things. That the very thing that is supposed to be used to save lives, essentially, is the one that's being misappropriated.
You know how it is when you hear of a criminal enterprise, you think of individuals whose everyday life has to do with something that runs contrary to the law. And yet, if you listen to these stories as they evolve, and literally on a daily basis, 3 things come to mind. One, they have been normalized in our society, meaning crime is a normal occurrence. And it has supplanted what normally was service provision has now become a criminal enterprise. So if anything actually gets done as it should, it's more or less by chance. It's not a deliberate action. The deliberate action seems to be to try and determine how best you can pilfer, number one. 2, when we talk about failure by Parliament to ensure that they protect the citizens who have elected them, they enact laws. There's something I like about our courts. You have an environmental court, you have a labor court, but perhaps we shouldn't judge people who are involved in these crimes, which are clearly crimes against humanity, in the same courts as these other petty crimes, as people who have stolen a chicken here, people who have beaten a neighbor here, people who have fought. They shouldn't. There should be a specific court and probably a specific arm of police set up, just like you have police who are in charge of the tourism. You set up a police force that is specific to such individuals, because the crimes that they commit affect not just a few people. It is the entire population of the country.
This is it, CT, and that's the thing. Because here you are saying, okay, well, let's inflate the price of tires, right? Something that would seem so simple.
It's almost innocuous.
Right? Yes. It doesn't really matter. And I think that's the thing, that you've gotten to the point whereby it doesn't really matter what you do. It doesn't really matter what you say. You're not taking into consideration that people's livelihoods essentially could depend on this thing. And the money that we are speaking about that people are coming to get in form of loans, it's not the hundreds of millions. There's a group who's taking 50,000 shillings. There's a group who's taking 20,000 shillings to set up a chicken coop of 100 birds. That's what we're talking about here. Oftentimes we say break it down. All this nonsense, bottom-up approach, bottoms-down, things like that. Break it down. That's what we're talking about. A group that is coming together of 5 women saying, let us get some 25,000 shillings and set up a poultry. You have taken that poultry, which would essentially then get food that they would sell and make a profit to do what? Pay their rent, buy food, send their children to school, take care of the sick. That's what we're talking about. Are we talking about anything more complicated than that? Basic things, but for whom these individuals means everything. So it's not just Uwezo.
Look,
it's
Youth
everything.
Enterprise Development Fund.
Uwezo comes to the fore.
Oh.
But ask yourself, we came up with this delightfully beautiful system of the county governments. A really good system, okay? The saddest thing about the county system is that the very thing people decried at the national level is being replicated at the county levels. Now, you know, the national government is far away from you. It is ile serikali ambao iko kule. It's over there. Someone else's government, and you can blame a few individuals. But then you have a government that is at your doorstep. It's your government. It's the people you elected. They're people you know. They're your relatives. And then the very same thing that you talked about, you complained about, is happening before your very eyes. And it's being perpetrated against you. By your own people. It tells you just how far spread this pandemic is. When I say, and it may sound facetious, that the leadership class in this country are the ones who are in the greatest need for mental health intervention. They, more than anybody else. Because when you get to a position where you start off by being someone who's supposed to be looking after the welfare of the people, and then you do the complete
then you
opposite.
eat the welfare.
Yes. Something is not right with you.
But then it's all of us, City. It's all of us.
Explain the all of us to me. So
You know why I say the all of us? If you look at all these organizations where questions are raised, name any, and you'll have an issue of accountability, of transparency. This is a fund, and we're not saying the Auditor General has basically just raised concerns and said, but how much? Why would we be charging so much? We don't know whether it's the actual sense, but let's just say, going by what the Auditor General is asking, why would a tire be costing 35,000 shillings when the market price is 8,000 bob? If you ask yourself, who is it that sits in procurement for such an organization? This is not leadership. These are people who are basically the you and I's. UCT, you've been appointed into the board of Uwezo Fund. Then the CEO is somebody who is you and I. Then the people who work in the offices are the you and I's. And we are the ones who are, skiza, ndu. Hapa kuna pesa. Skiza, can you supply tires?
I see what you're saying, Eric.
This is the you and I.
I get
the
it.
person who supplied these tires at 35,000 shillings is not a leader.
I get what you're saying.
It's just a normal Mukora entrepreneur.
It's true, because
What
the
is- and when
manager,
you
the procurement manager that you're in cahoots with, whatever, is the one who is getting this thing done.
And the
Because
private
at this point
sector
you ask
person.
yourself, where is a politician involved in this, for example, or a leader who
Oh,
we look
he's
up
at
to
the center
for
of it.
responsibility? And that's where I'm going with this. Because this practice that is happening here, the fact that it has become okay in the minds of the common, where did it start from? That it has been normalized, to the point that somebody asks, you're sitting in that position and you're not eating something. What is actually
What's the matter
wrong
with you? So when somebody asks you, why are you not committing wrong? Why are you not breaking the law? What is wrong with you? You ought to break the law. You ought to commit a crime. Then you're considered normal. Now, surely, you see, when we say it's all of us, Eric, I do agree with you. But what I consider sinister is we have completely removed ourselves from that chain of responsibility that people are supposed to have. The whole idea about leadership, among other things, is to set examples. Now, if the perennial example is a terrible one, and it is okay because nothing, the okaying is when you see nothing happening, and if something happening is actually seen, it's just a window dressing at the very best.
Yes.
So what then are you saying? The message is clear. It is okay to do wrong. It is okay to contravene the law. Now, that is why every time I have this discussion, you hear me going back to the political class, those in leadership, because whether we like it or not, believe me, they are looked up to and they are considered to be the people who ought to set certain examples.
They set examples for us. At the same time, CT, I want to bring in the other side of the responsibility.
Yes.
Part of the reason why, even when you have a resolute, somebody who appears to be a little bit resolute in terms of dealing with this, they receive a lot of pushback. They're receiving pushback from who? From the society. It is from the rest of us. It is not. They're not fighting a minority. They are fighting a majority. The one leader who will stand up to say, I am going, money, whatever happens, I'm going to finish corruption, they'll be alone. Plus maybe about 100 people. The rest, 49 million minus 100 people, the rest will be looking back and wondering,
You know, Eric, look at the story that we heard of one Mr. Ngaira. He was a street child, became a street adolescent.
Yep.
Okay? Intervention. One person. Not a community. One person intervened and they were clear about what they wanted to do. And there were 300. I am simply saying this. That one example and that one intervention brought Mr. Ngarai to the studio today to tell us his story. I am saying just as it is true, it is also true that that one person standing up is actually what you need. You don't need 10.
No.
And that one person needs to be among us.
Yes, and in not being that one person, you are right, we have failed. Because we ought to be the example setters in these situations where the monarchy says, you know, at this level of mind, forget the others, this is not going to happen. You've heard stories of people telling you how in the families that they came from, there are certain things you knew you wouldn't do. They usually don't mention fathers, they mention mothers. You dared. You knew you were dead. Of course, you're not physically dead, but you knew you'd face.
Come close.
you'd face the consequence of
even
your
as an
deed.
adult.
Yes.
You are still answerable to your mother.
Yeah.
You know, as you're being an adult, that's your mambo yako. You are their child.
Yes.
And you still listened. The mother. In fact, there are many times you're held in check and you think, hey, no, I think I'd rather not. And your mother isn't even anywhere near you. Now, those who are married are also held in check by partners. If you're a man, it's usually your wife. You think, this one, no. I'd rather not. Because what is going to come up as a result of it, I'd rather not deal with. Now, why is it then that if we understand this at a societal level and at a family level, why is it then that when we get to a larger societal level,
it doesn't apply?
Yes, why? And yet it's something we understand.
Let's continue this conversation in the next hour, right? And open up the phone lines as well and here. So we have all these social protection funds. We are seeing there's questions of corruption, left, right, and center. And then there's the issue of deals. When Ndu gets a job at Uwezo, I'm going to be, Ndu.
Remember me?
Wazi, mkubwa. Now, next. What is it that is happening to all of us, from leaders to citizens? Good morning. It's now 9 a.m.
Spice up your life.
Good morning. This is the Newswire. I'm Leah Ubaga. Lamu Governor Fahim Twaha has paid the full year's fees for Diana Nyokabi, the Bungoma pupil who scored 401 marks in last year's KCPE but was on the verge of losing out a chance to join Form 1 over lack of fees. Nyokabi's mother had decided to take her back to Standard 8 after she failed to secure the county scholarship. Nyokabi had been called to Moi Girls Eldoret.
Able to afford the fees to take me to school. I was sure that I was selected to the county scholarship, but unfortunately yesterday I was told that my name was not among the ones who were chosen by the county.
First May nilipata message nipeleke barua yake kwa county kuwa alikuwa among wale ambao wameselect kwa hiyo scholarship. Kufika Monday ndio nilikuja kugundua mtoto achachaguliwa.
Fugitive cop Caroline Kangongo will be buried today without the traditional send-off for a fallen soldier. Kangongo was being sought for the murder of her colleague John Ogweno and Juja-based businessman Peter Ndwiga before she was found dead at her parents' home in Nyawa Elgeyo Marakwet. She'll not be cremated as she had allegedly asked through a stream of text messages which police said were in her phone. The police service won't participate in the burial due to the circumstances surrounding her death, which are still under investigation. However, government pathologist Johansen Odwor, in his initial report, had said that Kangongo died from a single gunshot wound. The government has issued a warning on the resurgence of COVID-19 infections in the country. Health CS Mutahi Kagwe has warned that Kenyans' failure to observe COVID-19 measures has contributed to the situation. He has further accused politicians of holding rallies which are super spreaders of the virus.
Each time there has been huge political gatherings, you have seen for yourselves what it has resorted to. So mine is just to appeal to each and every one of you out there as Kenyans to please be aware that we have seen it happen in other countries. We have seen it overrun the health sectors in other countries. It can happen here as well.
As of yesterday, the infection rate was at 18% after 1,066 people tested positive for the virus. Kagwe further said the Delta virus was the most dominant variant in the country.
The dominant variant, irrespective of counties in this country at the moment, is the Delta variant. We are already in it. In terms of the spread, it is spreading faster than the other variants were spreading.
That's the Newswire. I'm Leah Ubaga.
.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
A little bit on Mombasa Road today. Actually, traffic is not looking too terrible today. We'll see a little bit right around Makadara on Jogger Road, heading out into the city, coming out of Westlands, right there in the middle as you're getting towards Chiromo. We know that the absence of the ramp is causing some issues, but people are using Mudivi to get out into the city. Apart from that, Uhuru Highway, in and outbound, is clogged. We'll have to keep an eye on things. But apart from that, traffic does look pretty good today. Coming off of Thika Road, I think we're dealing with the dregs of traffic hour now on Thika Road. Right around Pangani is where we'll see a bit of a hold-up. But let us know if it does. We'll see in about half an hour how it looks, okay? SpiceFM KE on Twitter. That's how you can get in touch. Text on 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start.
9. CT, today's proverb?
A rooster is not expected to crow for the whole world.
Okay. Kila boma na jogo lake. Sawa basi.
Precisely.
What's happening in Japan, Ndu?
Okay, so Kenya Malkia Strikers are still playing, and they're playing against Serbia at the moment, down a set. and 18-9 to Serbia in the second set. It's best of 5, so we still have some time. Let's wait and see. But they're trying. The girls are playing, I guess.
No.
They're 19-9 down in the second set.
First one was 25-21.
Yes, it was. It came close.
Okay.
But Serbia seems to have the upper hand right now.
Gauss. If these guys are now going to go 20, 29, they'll get to 25 before we move. Okay. So we're talking about accountability, especially in social protection bodies and social protection funds. Auditor General's report has raised concerns about Uwezo Fund, saying there appears to be some 4 billion shillings that could have been lost if just the questions that she's raising are anything to go by. Looking at procurement and the kind of procurements that were taking place at Uwezo Fund, purchase of tires, for example, is one that was being highlighted here. Tires that go market rate for tires between 8,000 and 15,000 shillings, and the Uwezo Fund was purchasing them at 35,000 too?
45,800.
Imagine.
Yeah.
And the Auditor General is asking, but why? But why? And this is not just that. This is many questions that have been asked of many organizations. Uwezo Fund, just looking at their website, and they say they have done quite a bit of work since they were enacted in 2014 and since they came to office. The number of organizations and people that they have benefited, they have so far disbursed 6.8 billion shillings. Total groups funded 71,205. Of those, 45,000 are women groups, 23,900 are youth groups, persons with disability groups 1,841. Total individuals who have benefited from these funds, 1 million people have benefited from these funds. Of those 1 million, 721 are male, 323 are female. See, if we just look at the numbers, they've done pretty well. But then I want to also look at, these are just the numbers that appear here. If you look at what, for example, we know to be the AGPO, okay, where you get the certificate and they say 30% of procurement by government policy shall go to businesses that are owned by youth, women, and persons with disabilities. So you get the AGPO certificate. We have heard, and you can even talk to many people and they'll tell you they know, of companies that have the AGPO certificate. They are registered by people who, yes, this one is 80% female-owned, or it's a youth, or it's a person living with disability. But the beneficial owner is somebody who is fully bodied, who is male, and who is above 35. As in, they don't qualify for any of those three. And this is just being engineered by we people. Go and register a company. Go and apply for AGPO certificate. That means that you're going to get the 30% procurement in government. If you look at this, the Uwezo Fund is supposed to have been benefiting groups that have women, youth, persons with disabilities. Do they have any kind of support that gets them through the door at Uwezo Fund? There are many that are genuine. There are others, if we were to tell ourselves our own truths, there are others that are not. It's somebody who comes and organizes people and says, let's come together, you guys, you'll be a youth group, I'll get you through the door, you'll get money, and this is the business we're going to do. Many others. Youth Fund, the same. CT, you are saying, and even Indu, you are saying the same thing. It stems from our leadership, or lack thereof, and this now has permeated and percolated throughout the entire society to where we are today.
I don't think we can run away from the influence.
And I want to start back and say, yes, very many times you like looking back at, leadership, political class, just like CT, you countered when this morning, when we talked about the political class and what they are doing in the spread against COVID-19. And yeah, there's a role they're playing. But a greater majority of us are not doing what we're supposed to be doing.
Yes.
You guys are saying leadership. I'm saying, yeah, leadership, but leadership 30 years ago. Today, it is we the people. We are looking for those opportunities where we can go and steal from that thing called government.
Can we really divorce the symbiotic relationship that we have with leadership in its broadest possible term? And the examples and the power of example that, you see, this discussion of nature versus nurture is often at the heart of what we were discussing earlier on with one Mr. Ngaira with reference to children and the ECD. Okay, formative years. When is a child most influenced? But if you take it further and give it a religious twist, is a child born with the purity of self, which is completely devoid of anything evil? You'll find that those who subscribe to religion, specifically the Christian faith, you'll find that perhaps notable quotes from scripture will contradict that and say, no, people are actually born with evil inside them. And that nature is something that already implants in your hard drive. So it is now the socialization aspect of it, nurture, that helps taper it. And then they say, no. But example shows this. It's an ongoing debate. But what it tells you is that both apply. Now, which is the more powerful? We are all born with a certain personality. We are all born with a certain inclination. Some we inherit, some we acquire on our own. Some is just us. It's us. It's uniquely us. But you cannot downplay the role that we acquire right from childhood about the example of those we consider to be leaders. Parents are the leaders we have. Then we grow up a little bit, it's our peers. They are the influencing factor. Then those who are a little older. Then you come to trends when you're more aware what influences you. A trend won't influence you unless there's a peer influence behind it. So the issue of influence in our lives is always there. And all I'm saying is that there is a role that is played by those who are in authority over us. And it's a great role. And it's a role that we cannot downplay.
And I think there are two things here, is that we cannot run away from the influence that leadership plays in the actions and lives of those that they lead. Whether it's at the basic unit of society, which is the family, or whether it is high up there when we're looking at governance and leadership and such. It's not as though somebody is telling you, all right, well, now that you are in this position, CT, now please go ahead and misappropriate funds. No. I think there's a general attitude that others are seen with, and then it is then imbibed, and then it becomes a normal mode of practice. It's just the same way. When you see a son behaving in a certain manner that may be untoward, and then people in the community say yes, even his father or his mother used to behave that way. Does it necessarily mean that the father or the mother sat down and said, son, you will then behave thus? Or was it that there was certain conditioning that took place, and that this individual watched and saw certain things that then became habitual, and then it was the norm, and that's the way things are done, and nobody really complains about it. Now, I hear what you're saying, that you do have a choice. You do have a choice when you're sitting in that position to do something different, but unfortunately, the wrong, as it were, oftentimes takes precedence over the right. It is quite unfortunate, but yeah, it will then take an extremely strong person to be able to say, okay, you know what, we're going to break the chain of this and turn it into something else. But right now, what are we seeing? From medical supplies that can change people's lives, to tires, to, it doesn't really matter, you're spoiled for choice. Choose whatever you want. From huge infrastructure projects that could save people's lives in the name of dams, to something as basic as a tire that moves a vehicle. You will steal it. It is not because somebody came and told you to do it, but it is because the atmosphere is so conditioned that it has become normalized.
And you see, there is a benefit that people derive from this, but they focus on the benefit without focusing on the consequences that inevitably must accompany benefits. You see, yes, this money is intended. In fact, forget the money intended. We had Monica Juma, our CS for defense, here. And when we're talking about security, and this morning we touched on General Kaboshi, the KDF, the head of the military in this country. See, why do we need to keep employing security officers? Why do we keep talking about police security? Why do people keep building houses with walls that are even higher than the roof of the house itself? Because they imagine that provides security. And I argue it doesn't. That's not security. You see, you know that there will be people who might want to invade your compound, people who might want to come and make a grab for what you have. But the real question is, why are you so acutely aware of this? It's because we have brought about a society where the disparity is so great and it keeps growing. So you are insecure because you believe your fellow citizens or some members of the citizenry will mean you harm. Now, it is an ongoing debate and will continue being an ongoing debate. But do you really think that these dangers would be as great as they are if indeed the services that are expected from the government to its people were provided for and people could take them for granted? If I knew that I could go to hospital and I could get treated, if I knew my child could go to school and I wouldn't have a problem, if I knew that the bursary system actually works and if I needed help, I could get it. But when all these things don't work as they should, then you open up a completely new conversation. And that new conversation is the one which we have in the country right now. And it just keeps opening new chapters.
The things not working as they should is what we are discussing about Uwezo Fund and the others. Okay? Now, how do we put in the correlation between the fact that you have been employed at this organization, you are there to serve, to make sure that some elderly person, 70 years and above, somewhere receives 2,000 shillings. 2,000. Or some youth group somewhere can receive 10,000 shillings and start up a business. Or some women group or some group of persons with disability somewhere can just receive some money to set themselves up. But you sit and you steal. How do we associate all that with, it's because of an example that was set? An example could have been set, but surely, in your own head,
if the leading criminal enterprise in your country is the government itself, and those in authority, and those in the political class, arguably, Eric, the citizenry, yes, will point fingers at the leadership and not point fingers at themselves. But you asked about the connection? Okay. Do we actually believe our constitution when it tells us that we are the ultimate power in the country? We don't. We actually believe that the people we elect, and the people who we give authority to manage the money we pay them, called taxes, we still believe that these are the people who actually have the real power. And there's a reason why we believe so. There is a reason why we believe so. So now, it isn't a dead end, if you ask me. It is a process that we are going through. Because this state that we are in, we are not the first country in the world to go through this state. No, we are not. Many other countries have gone through this very, very, very same process. And there are countries that have come out of it. And they've become better. And the reason why they've become better is the leadership.
And the leadership was elected by the people.
There's a gentleman who headed a certain country called Venezuela.
Can we hear from John first, and then we?
No, let's hear from John, please.
Okay, John in Elbagon. Good morning. Where are you though? You're John from Elbagon, but you're not always there.
Yeah, I'm in Nairobi actually.
Or is Elbagon the name of the company that you own?
Are you the beneficial owner?
When you director, chairman, CEO of Elbagon Company?
Elbagon Company. Yeah, now, there's this famous saying that you don't respond to a mosquito bite with a sledgehammer. But sometimes you actually need a bazooka to respond to a mosquito bite, to send a message. So that you don't only kill the mosquito, but also bring the house down. So that all the other mosquitoes out there know that this person is serious and they will not enter any other house again. And I think that's what we need.
That's what we need.
That's what we need. And I can give you my example. I tried to do some business with the county. I'll not mention which one. And it was it was not much. I was just planting hay and selling to the county hay. And it was impossible. It is impossible to do business. I even don't know how people are doing business with the counties. And that's why I'm saying I disagree a bit with Ndu and Muga when they say it's about leaders. And it to me, it just boils to individual people. Because those clerks in the county, those procurement people in the counties, they are just individuals.
What was your experience, John? What did you go through? Where were these stumbling blocks?
Oh, many things. From the first time I got shocked. I didn't do much. I was supposed to. I supplied about 1,200 bales of hay. So when I'm going to take my invoice, somebody tells me instead of 1,200, we can write 2,000 bales. Yes.
This is after you've supplied.
Yes, after you have supplied.
Okay.
Because you supply, you get you get the okay, after you have supplied it, now you go to invoice. When you go to invoice, you're told, no, instead of writing 1,200, andika 2,000. Alafu kilipwa hiyo ya Juni yetu. And I ask myself, surely, if this is what everybody is doing, where are we going as a nation? And it looks like very little money. The way you are saying that maybe it's just a tire and all that. But you can imagine if every item in the county people are doing that, how much are the counties losing?
A lot.
Yes, it's a lot. A lot.
So,
and just this morning, and in fact, it's interesting you're bringing this discussion. Just this morning, when I leave my house, just out about a few meters from where I stay, there's usually a traffic police officer there collecting money from matatus every morning, every day. And today I was just, as I passed there, even before we started this discussion, I was just asking myself, have we just allowed this to be part of our life? It is just part of us. I mean, we don't feel anything. We have just allowed it to be part of our life.
And we expect it. In fact, when we elect a leader, one of the things that we will gauge a leader, a candidate by is whether they're able to give us money.
Exactly.
Knowing full well that means that they have illicitly acquired that money that they're giving us. Because, I mean, why would somebody go and get their own money from their own savings and come and give you? Yes.
And there's an example my brother Muga was giving. And he said maybe you're married or your mother, and sometimes you are not able to do something because you know. Why do you think somebody is not able to do that? Because they know there are consequences.
Yes.
In our country, we are doing this because we know there are no consequences.
In fact, there is praise.
Yes.
Like what we're seeing now with this Uwezo Fund, likelihood that it was a story and we're not going to hear about it again. 4 billion shillings misappropriated, and that's the end of the story.
And it will be part of it. And the examples that my friend Muga is giving, that countries which have come out of this, is because people have known that there are consequences.
Yeah.
It's not that citizens one time reach and say, no, from today we will be good people, we will not be taking bribes, we are now saved. No. It reaches a point and people realize actually there are consequences. When I do this, there are consequences. In U.S., there's a time in the cities in U.S., Chicago and all that, there were a lot of crimes, there were all those things, there were drugs and all that. And then even the police force in U.S., there's a time it was very corrupt. And then just with time they started knowing that as a police officer, I do this, there are consequences. As a citizen, I do this, there are consequences. Until we reach that point, I think we are just doomed.
And how do you think we will reach that point, John, if I may ask?
Oh, we have to get a very good leader, somebody who is going to change the way we look at things.
He'll come around. So you agree with him, it's leadership.
No, leadership plays a big role.
Okay.
That's why I say it is not it will not be an individual thing that you as a person you have to do it.
Yeah, it has to be a leader.
No, it has to be leadership. It has to be leadership. And yesterday, just to finish, I saw an article in the paper about a school in Sierra. I don't know if you read it. And on top of it there was a photo, and there's a caption on top there that the loudest teacher is the one to be heard. Where students are in the same class, they are facing opposite each other.
Yeah.
Those are two classes in the same class.
Yep.
So one is teaching math, the other one is teaching Kiswahili in the same class. And you look at those things and you just read and they pass. But you come to realize actually those are the consequences, those are the fruits of corruption.
Asante sana, John.
Thank you.
Have a lovely day.
Yes, sir.
Teddy in Voi.
Yes, sir. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Good morning.
Hey, my friend.
Yes.
It's something of a shame that our leaders have actually taken us to that path. Can I tell you, Eric? Somebody works in the county government. He actually opens companies, right?
Yes.
And then when tenders are floated, he's the one who actually gives his companies the tenders. When it comes to payment, he's the one who actually orders the finance department to pay his companies
to release the money. Yes.
So that is something that people have not realized.
Yeah.
Again, you have the executive. Yes, you have the executive now demanding the PAs from different departments to do shoddy and very bad job, so they can be able to remain with some monies and they give back to the executive. Like right now, as I speak to you, I don't want to say my county. You actually know. They owe me over 2-point-something million. And when you go to ask, you're told there's no money in the account. Wait. The treasury has not released the money. So there's a lot. The country.
For how long have they owed you this?
Corruption. So these issues of a wheelbarrow being bought at 100, maybe 100,000, it's a fact. Spoons. Yeah, the auditors come, and when the auditors come, I can bet you they're put in their pockets, Eric, honestly. Yeah.
It's painful.
It is. We're actually moving on.
And why I'm saying it's painful is because those ordinary officers who are working in that county government, and even the others who are working in various different government departments, those people, when they go home, somebody knows, nani alipata kazi kwa account. Kwa department gani? Accounts, procurement. Bas.
We're done.
We are good. When they go home, they're celebrated.
Yeah.
The rest of us are actually wondering, this guy, can you imagine, this guy worked in the county government under so-and-so governor for 5 years, and look
at where he is now.
There's something else to this story, and that is understanding the consequences of it. The reason why I began by referring to former president, former late president of Venezuela, Hugo Chavez, was because his tenure as the ruler of the country represented two interesting extremes. On the one hand, his presidency coincided with oil prices going up, and his country had some mega
benefits from oil
because they had a lot of oil reserves. Okay, now the social changes that he brought about ended up in people who ordinarily would never have had an education or would never have been able to enjoy the benefits that other members of that society did. He brought it about. But he also was responsible for suppressing certain democratic freedoms. He jailed people who were critical of his government.
Also, we are told.
Well, it is actually in the public domain.
People are jailed, yes, but for the reasons that now we are told. Go on.
You see, but that is always the story.
Yes.
But then he also suppressed the press. But the point is this. If you were to discuss his rule, there are very many Venezuelans who tell you if Hugo Chavez had never been president, we would never have been able to achieve what we achieved.
Yeah.
Well, sure. I mean, you hear the same thing of the late Gaddafi.
Yes.
In the sense that, he had been touted as a certain kind of individual. But Libyans, literally, as we say, the situation on the ground, Libyans will tell you, if he did not put some of these protectionist policies here that the West is calling dictatorial and et cetera, we would not have been able to see free education, for example. One of the few African countries that has free education
Genuine
up until
university
level.
Yes.
We would not have been able to see that somebody who is a fishmonger in the middle of Libya is able to afford a vehicle, for example.
A house.
That is their own.
Yes.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it really then depends on what position are you going to take regardless of all the noise around you.
Piped water in every,
in every home.
village.
Yes. In a country that...
In a desert.
Yes.
What will you do about the noise? So it may be a different kind of noise, but it's noise all the same. What will an individual do in an office where public procurement is the norm for you to take a little something and put into your pocket? What will you do when there's that noise around you?
In fact, you're spot on with the issue of Muammar Gaddafi. To understand it fully, look at his exit and his eventual murder. What did this country become?
Is there a country?
Precisely.
There are several things that are called
It
Libya.
represents mayhem. It represents chaos. It represents disintegration in a way that, in fact, you look and you wonder and you say, goodness gracious me.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes, until we as a citizenry get to understand and appreciate the full effects of this crime that we support, we haven't gotten there yet. No, we don't. There's a dalliance with it. We still think, it's not really that bad. No,
it's okay.
It's a horrible, terrible thing, but we haven't fully realized that when you participate in it, what you lose as a result of it is far greater than the gains that you think you have.
That's true. Let's take a break. 28 minutes to 10. So the match, Kenya versus Serbia. So they won the second set. We are in the third set. We were leading, and then they caught up, and then we've been taking each other, set into the other. Now they're at 18-14. Serbia 18, Kenya 14. But it's a tight one. Okay, let's take a look at traffic and the weather, and then we continue the conversation. We want to hear from you as well. 0719-012-600.
24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
Losing a loved one is never easy. The lingering memories, the what-ifs, but in all the gloom, we find ways of celebrating them. And here at the Standard Tributes, we aim to give your loved ones that befitting send-off. Visit www.standardmedia.co.ke/tributes today and post your loved one's tribute. In addition, get access to funeral services from our trusted vendors. The Standard Tributes, keeping memories alive.
24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
Do your callers frequently ask you what stories made the news headlines? Introducing the Call Bulletin, courtesy of Skiza. You can now keep your callers informed and up to date with the latest news updates from KTN News, courtesy of Skiza. Dial *811 *795# to subscribe today. Set the tone with Skiza.
24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
They are stealing every opportunity that you should have. They're stealing your health facilities. They're stealing all the progress that you planned for your child. They're stealing all the benefits that university students should have. Your livelihood is slowly being taken away from you, which means your life is also being slowly taken away from you as you watch.
Cut through the noise and stay in the know by texting the word TSR to 22840 to receive these and more highlights and insights from the Situation Room directly to your mobile phone. Don't miss out on the latest from Kenya's biggest conversation. SMS TSR to 22840.
All right, so we're still looking at cloudy conditions in Nairobi this morning. There was a bit of a sprinkle earlier, and it still continues. Highs of 21 and lows of 13. Light rain at 13 in Nyeri, highs of 19. 21 will be the high in Nakuru, where it continues to rain at 16. We're also still looking at rain showers at 16 in Eldoret, highs of 22 and lows of 13. 27 will be the high in a rainy Kisumu, currently at 21. Light rain at 21 in Kakamega, highs of 26 and lows of 16. 28 will be the high in Mombasa. It's raining at 25. Rain showers at 25 as well in Malindi, highs of 28 and lows of 24. 27 will be the high in a mostly sunny Kampala now at 24. We're also looking at rain in Dar es Salaam, highs of 29 and lows of 24 will be the low in a sunny Johannesburg, currently at 12. And it's raining in Lagos at 24. Highs of 30 will come down to lows of 25. It's sunny at 20 in Kinshasa, highs of 32 and lows of 21. Raining in Beijing at 24. It'll go to highs of 26 and lows of 22 today. It's mostly sunny in Paris at 15. Highs of 24. It'll come back down to lows of 15. And it's 14 and sunny in London. Highs of 22, lows of 15. And finally in New York, it's mostly cloudy very early on Thursday morning. We'll go through the day seeing highs of 25 and lows of 21.
Thank you.
The political class, the contestants, everybody is trying to outsteal the other.
Remorse is not taught in any school. Manners is something you get from your mother. You don't get it from your political party.
Why are we so unfocused as a country? Why are we spending money and resources, yet we have real challenges in this country?
This coronavirus pandemic should teach us one thing, that universal healthcare is critical. Because at this point, whether you have a medical card that covers you, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Okay, so traffic continues in certain parts of the city. I think it's going to remain this way for a couple of minutes more. But I think we're officially out of traffic hour. It's not thumping red anywhere. Just a little bit here and there on Mombasa Road and then Thika Road as well. Outbound on Mombasa Road is where we have a bit of an issue. But apart from that, I think we're getting things down to a dull roar. Let's keep a look through the day and see what it looks like. It'll probably pick up later in the afternoon. Not to forget, if you get stuck, SpiceFM KE on Twitter, text on 40127.
Welcome to Spice FM, the best exclusive radio station bringing you the best mix of the best music ever. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM.
Minutes to 10. Kenya's biggest conversation. It continues. What will it take for us to get proper accountability in our public institutions? Or just to end this culture that we have? The other day, it was a story about Kenya School of Law, and some people have been taken to court. Managers in the accounts department, finance department, and a junior manager who's accused of, being in close association with a company that was given some contract. And it's everywhere.
It's permeated.
It's
everywhere. It doesn't matter where you look, you are going to find this thing. And we're not talking about something that's slowly making its way. I think the tentacles are deep and wide. But I think that what it's going to take one person. It's going to take one person that begins to normalize the process of being upright with integrity. Because it took one person to start the practice long time ago. It will take one person to start to turn things and reverse. You can't sit and say we're all going to sit together and have a kumbaya moment and say, okay, let's stop this thing that we've been doing. No, it's going to take one person. The person might be persecuted. The person might be declared persona non grata, whatever might happen. But it's going to take one person and another person after that to see. But I think it's also important for us to continue to highlight the kinds of losses that are being made when then we're now talking about the development and survival of the people.
There's something
4 billion shillings, what can it do?
There's something strange here. Even as we look at the citizenry and we talk about the role and the responsibility. If somebody had asked me when President Kibaki was president during that particular era, if he would be able to turn certain things around, I would have said I don't think so. Because the same thinking that I have now, I thought these are things that are entrenched and people resist it. But what I saw leads me to believe that the vast majority of people, and I will say what it is that I saw or I understood, are actually willing to do the right thing. What they're not willing to do is probably to stick their necks out. But to do the right thing, if the opportunity provides itself, it will. We all know the story of John Mishuki and the Matatus. Where the Wanaji said, you know something, we will walk. But why? They understood how they were treated by the culture that pervaded that particular industry, and they were willing to make a stand. Why? Somebody had also made a stand. So they followed. So leadership. Again, I didn't think I would know. You know, let me give you some of the fringe benefits of age. Yeah? In an earlier time when I was in my early 20s and even got on to my 30s, getting a passport in this country was a landmine. It was a radioactive process. You really couldn't. It would take months even getting a passport. Something you think was your right, getting it. You went through this process, then who had to do what, and this. You had a very, very difficult go of it. Can you imagine my surprise when all you needed to do was present yourself, not know anybody? You present yourself, you say this, and you're told, follow this process, fill this form, do this, pay this amount, and come on this day.
Yeah.
And then it improved. You are even told the day on which you're even notified that your passport is ready.
Yeah.
So it means certain good processes, when they are started, can actually continue. They need not be reversed. Now, what am I saying with all this? I am saying that if indeed good examples were seen, they would not be difficult to follow. Because I don't think that this discussion is something that the majority of Kenyans are happy with. I don't think the vast majority of Kenyans are of necessity happy.
Yeah, not all of us are happy with this current situation.
No, of the situation that we have. Not really. But we are not willing to stick our necks out.
Yeah.
So if leadership sticks its neck out and says, okay, this is the position we take, why do you think every time we have a religious leader with us here, I always ask that question, have you abrogated your roles?
That's church.
Why aren't you speaking out loudly enough about some of these things?
Yeah.
Because civil society has taken over that role.
Let's go to the phone lines. I have two callers on the
Please.
line. Amani in Nairobi, good morning.
Yeah, good morning, Eric. Good morning, Du. Good morning, CP.
Good morning.
Yes, corruption, bribery is so embedded that you can only call Kenya as a people and as a country a criminal enterprise and not just the government itself. I've done all sorts of different kinds of businesses, and I found it in all those areas. And basically the business collapses because you wouldn't play ball. But I remember a particular business, which was a car dealership, or spare parts rather. And I would find people coming into the shop to buy a spare part, and they would demand, not ask, as I'm trying to write the receipt for the item, and I know what would it cost because those are my items. They would demand, can you write, when an item is costing, let's say 100 bob, write 1,000 shillings. Without any shame, without saying, would you mind? Would you please? Nothing. It was a demand. Right. And that was everybody. They picked up the price they wanted. Whatever money they wanted that day, that price, that figure, they want me to write it on that receipt, regardless of the price of the item. And I had all sorts of people coming in. People in business suits, people in wearing overalls, technical people. I even had neighbor staff, a complimentary neighbor, was an associate business. Their staff would come into my shop and they would say, can we borrow a pen? And I never thought anything of it. I just thought, oh, okay. They're in a hurry. They're taking an invoice to a client, all right? So they had to either make an adjustment before they went, fine. And I never looked at it until one day I happened to be standing right there as they were writing it. And I saw them change the figure of 5,000 the boss had written for the receipt, to take to the customer. That lady put 1 in front of the 5. It became 15,000 shillings. And she was going to collect the money. Just taking that invoice and receipt to the person to pay. A big boss somewhere. He paid her 15K. She gave her boss 5K.
Wow.
So I've seen it everywhere. I even had a painter come in to do some work in the shop. And he had this amazing proposal. I looked at him in utter horror. He said to me, "Madam, would you mind supplying the ministry of..." He gave me the ministry name at that time. And I said, "Supply them with what exactly?" I said, "We can supply them with the parts you have. I have so-and-so there, and I don't know." He had a whole team he had organized together. And he wanted to be part of this team because I would be the supplier.
Yeah.
I said, "No, not quite. Yeah, I don't think I'm interested." Yeah, because basically it was to inflate, to send inflated invoices. Even if we sent air, it was okay. Yeah. So
as long as the money comes out.
Yes. What I'm saying is, it's so blatant. People are not embarrassed because it's the norm, as you people have been saying this whole morning. It's been so normalized that it's not an issue. And when you say, "I beg your pardon," or "What do you mean?" they think you are abnormal. In fact, I had a very bad name within that space where I was operating the shop. She's too Christian. Can you imagine that?
Yes,
a Christian king.
I can imagine. We can imagine with great ease, actually.
I was horrified. Anyway, that was the end of the business. Because if you don't play ball, they won't come to your store. Because, the word gets around.
Yeah.
That one won't give you what you want.
Yeah.
And that's what I was accused of. You won't get what you want when you go to that shop. And I'm thinking, what do you mean what you don't want? If you want a wiper, if you want I don't know what, which part, I'll get it for you. No, that wasn't it.
That's not what we want.
No. We want inflated receipts and invoices from you, and you won't give it to us. That was the end of the business. So it's not just the government. Yeah, as you've been saying, we really have to get onto the moral high ground and insist. What you learn, what parents teach their children is morality, right and wrong. There's no in between with right and wrong. Okay?
We
learn it from there. Yes, do what is right. So that when the children even go to school, even in the syllabus, there should be a class. Ethics, morality, and that's what you learn. Because you have to learn it throughout your life. It should not be dropped at all. You must never drop the ball. So that it's part of your psyche. It's part of your normality. It's not the exception. So when you get into positions of leadership, or wherever you are, CEO, whether CEO of the country, CEO of Standard Group, or whatever it is, CEO of your own house, you do the right thing. It's the norm. Anything else would be like, "I beg your pardon?" But right now, it's the other way around.
It's the other way around. Thank you, Amani.
Thank you.
Have a lovely day. Mwangi in Nairobi, good morning.
Good morning, Eric. How are you guys doing?
We're fine.
Thank you.
Yeah. Now, I wanted to give the example of Tanzania to do with this corruption thing.
Yep.
Some people might beg to differ, but Magafuli used to go to government offices, and by the time he's landing in that office, there's something he knows. And he'll start asking questions. People will try and twist him, and he'll say, "No, that's not what I have asked you. There's a question I've asked you." You try and twist him, you say, "No, me, I've reported to my boss." He says, "Who's your boss? Tell him to come here." And he actually goes stage by stage till he gets to the bottom of the issue. Yeah? So it starts with the leadership. By the time you're hearing president is coming to your office, you're shaking because
you already know.
This. Another thing I wanted to say was Kenya is just a microcosm of the whole world. Yeah, it is a culture that is instilled in us right from birth.
Yeah.
Whistleblowers are punished. People that actually,
do the right thing are shunned.
Actually, are rewarded. We can look at John Yebongo. What happens to him? Now he's in court there, he's been told that he defamed Chris Mulangaro because he just brought out what was actually going on. But what happens in our court? It's vilified. So anyway, yeah, that's the point I wanted to make.
Very good point, Mwangi, and thank you very much.
Okay, thanks. Have a good day.
You too.
Thanks.
Lydia, good morning.
Good morning, SpiceFM, City, Ndu, and Eric.
Good
Morning.
morning.
For your
Morning, dear.
discussion. Good morning. I wanted to say that City often mentions Kibaki. When he became president in his first term, he made all the computers, printers, UPS projectors, mobile phones tax-free. He told the licensed people not to charge 6 billion to Safaricom, Airtel, etc. But he said, charge 1 billion. Where is 6 billion and where is 1 billion? These charges are not from the honest hard workers. It's just troubling the honest hard workers with big charges. Then the VAT on business, when his second term of office came in, the post-election violence plunged him down by charging VAT on business rents, VAT on residential rents. Then it was changed to another name. It was terrible. All the businesses now had to move out of their premises because the rents became too big. Everything became out of place because of this post-election violence group. We should think twice never to elect this post-election violence group again. President Kibaki made a small government and they came in and gave us the biggest bloated government. If you paid 6,000, pay 12. If you paid 12, then it went to 20. Then it went to 35,000. How can somebody move at such a range of price?
Yeah. Just become expensive
terrible.
and more expensive. Thank you very much, Lydia.
Not allowing you to do business.
That's true.
Thank you.
Asante,
Thank you.
Lydia. It's like, it's become part of us. Anyway, updates on Malkia strikers done.
Well, unfortunately, yes. So lost 3-0 to Serbia. Still some more matches to play, but in terms of contention, out, and that now gives Serbia a top position in the table with that win, 3 points. And so they're still in contention. Kenya plays Brazil and Dominican Republic, I believe, in the next coming days. But lost that match this morning, unfortunately. Tough one.
Okay. So KTN Home is now showing beach volleyball. When was this played? Was this live?
This is live, actually. No, it's not. No, it's not. It was played earlier.
It's a repeat, huh?
Yes.
Beach volleyball. Kenya is in the beach volleyball. Makoha and Khadambi are playing beach volleyball. That's the two ladies. And they're playing against USA.
Yes, they are.
Higher. So, if you listen to what we've heard from the callers, the examples in the county government, in ordinary government departments, and it's ordinary people who are just somebody coming and telling you, like Ramani was saying, just somebody who is, their job is to shuffle paper, receive, go get it paid, bring you the money. The invoice is 5,000, the other one, it becomes 15,000, and they're in cahoots with the person who's paying.
In my early years of employment, I worked in Mombasa. And I remember a story I was told about a certain clerk who actually worked for the customs department. He was actually known. Had been a clerk all his life. But the thing that made this man particularly well known was the properties he owned. Clerk. No, sorry. He was a messenger.
Okay.
He moved paper. It's the shuffling of paper that brought this to my mind. From one place to the other to the other. Okay? He owned blocks of flats. Now, when I asked those who were telling me the story how it is that he was able to do this, he said the headquarters of the customs department, it's the middle of the town, one of the things that you are never certain of is whether your documents would move at the speed it was required to move.
Yes.
Because it left, you can log them in or lodge them. They are stamped. But whether it's going to go to the next and to the next stage, you're not really sure. But this gentleman was somebody who gave you certainty. Okay? He was a one-person system that guaranteed that your documents would get to where they were supposed to get. Okay? Now, because of this, and it got known that if so-and-so is shuffling your documents, but then I thought to myself, it can't just be shuffling documents. I think he must have had a different role also. He must have been somebody who was trusted enough to take with the documents the fast-forward instrument that was required to make the documents move. You see, documents, yes, you can carry them, but there are certain instruments that must accompany the document. It's called the Kenya shilling. If it accompanies the document,
then we're good to go.
Then the document, it moves at the pace it should move, and everything is hanky-dory. Now, when you have a system such as this one, then there comes the belief that anything that had to do with the customs department in Mombasa, nobody talked about it loud, but it was accepted that you are going to part with more money than you actually should if you want everything done.
Yeah.
And do you know what came out of this? Clearing and forwarding, a very straightforward business, became a very lucrative business. Because then the role of the clearing and forwarding agents was precisely that. They, apart from just clearing and forwarding for you, they would also carry, remember that instrument that I meant that unlocks certain things? Yes, they were responsible for it.
For facilitation.
Yes. Whereas the actual clearing and forwarding, there's a very small percentage of that whole process that is actually yours. But they became well-to-do because you didn't know what was actually required. And so what they told you is what you went with or what you went by. Now, unfortunately, this thing that one saw, I fail to even recognize the monster that we now have. Because you would think that it is only within certain spheres. When I say it's within every aspect of our society, it is. I've been told stories about church settings where you have elections. These lovely, nice structured churches. And I was told the goings on before a higher office individual is elected is not any different.
No different from all this nonsense.
From what you see.
At you are campaigning to be elected at deacon, archdeacon,
bishop.
Lazima
Those documents will also escort the process.
Yes. There has to be those instruments that unlock. I think in the church setting it's accompanied by prayer, but by and large, the instruments have to be there. Now, it probably explains partly why it is that people who are supposed to be the moral custodians within our society can't carry out their duty because they know that they've fallen short of the required standards. Now, if everybody is motivated and moved by one, greed, and then a guilt factor that accompanies it, then we're at a standstill. But, what I think is the saving grace is that we still know what is right and what is wrong. So that even when people proceed to do what is wrong, they know.
They already know.
Is wrong.
They know.
It's when they don't know. And some people in society actually have gotten to the point where they actually do not see what is wrong.
It's wrong with it.
Yes.
So isn't that a very dangerous place to be? That you're you're in the pit among the lions, and it's still
just like that.
It's normal.
Yeah, it becomes normal. True. Thank you for today's conversation. City, as we conclude today's proverb.
A rooster is not expected to crow for the whole world.
This one, I hope the rooster can now even crow for the whole world. Warning.
It would actually be something terrible if there was only one rooster in the world. There isn't. So each rooster can crow in its own locality.
But in this case, one rooster needs to crow and wake everybody the hell up.
Very true. If one rooster crows, it can influence the other roosters that also need to crow elsewhere.
Absolutely.
So we should have more roosters in our homesteads. Thank you for listening today. Join us again tomorrow, Friday, the 30th day of July 2021. Have a lovely day, folks. Now until 11, you have uninterrupted music. Then Sugar and Spice come in. Sugar is
Yolanda.
Spice is
DJ Absolute.
There you go. They come from 11 until
2.
And then
Monique drives you home till 7 p.m. at 3. And then the adults in the room take you into the night at 7 o'clock until 10 p.m. discussing those issues that matter
that matter
to your heart.
Very good.